I helped her 1 year. Oh, yeah. And she put a post out, anybody that likes Trump is idiots and stuff. Yeah, I like her.
All right, good morning, everybody. I'd like to call to order the public safety committee meetings for September. I'll call the finance. Thank you. First order of business, accept the minutes from our August 31st meeting. Dave, thank you. Second. Nina. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, 2024 department budgets. First up. Back examiners are here. Corners. All right, let's go through the budget. Page 2 for revenue, 27 for expense. There's not. Yeah, another go examiners. 2 and 27 for expenses. Revenues are in line. Yeah, hard to get revenue for that. All right. Yeah.
The request is actually down a couple $1,000 from last. Oh, from the amended.
Good, we're doing better. What's next?
Matters.
All right. Weights and measures, revenue on 16 and.
Travel plan.
Oh, the corner travel, yeah, thank you. Thank you, keeping us on track. Yeah, there's 2 spring conference and a fall conference. For all the corners. Like that is in the budget.
Where did it happen?
The conference itself, I don't know.
Travel other? Would that be that or education training staff? And education training staff development, would that be? Where it should be.
I'm just wondering where they're going.
4170. Oh, okay.
They mentioned it recently in one of the community meetings, because they just went, I think, that's where it was.
Down the fire cab.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I thought it was out west.
That's what I did too.
Closer to Syracuse, but I'm not sure exactly.
Harold. And the corner expense, position expense, are we still in that original contract that we talked about? Was that a contract price? Remember that? So might be the position for corner.
Which expense was that?
4505.01.
It's under the contractual line, so. Yeah. Yeah.
Very good increase, that's I know, but. Oh, okay, it's been from, it's a new contract.
It might be the same doctor.
It is. the medical guy that does the forensic testing,
Yeah.
yeah. Dr. Sikorica.
Yeah.
I think it is. Yeah, they still use him, and there is a contract for the coroner position. I think it expires at the end of the year, but yeah, Dr. Sikorica sends his, we have his price for the year. No, I don't think he's under contract, I think we have to pay.
Well, it says Hudson Headwater underneath.
That's what I'm thinking.
Hudson Headwaters is the coroner's position. Who works for Hudson Headwaters,
That's not Dr. Sirica.
no. That,
So there should be,
coroner.
I know, that's what.
well, I think the very bottom line, 100,000, maybe that's Dr. Sirica.
And there's no actual in that line for this year.
That's the.
That's good, that's.
There's no actual on the Hudson.
I think they pay twice a year on that.
No, that's what's in there, but the actual is there, right? 23 actual amount says 0 on mine.
Oh, but if you go to the very bottom line, the very bottom of the page, 32,000, maybe we're splitting. The autopsy is 100,000.
So I think that's where we had a line. Last year, we created a new one this year, and the money got moved. The one was left blank. And the money got moved. Maybe things are getting paid out of the wrong one and we'll have to.
Yeah, there's no actual there. All I can go by. is put in the line.
So the parent account was left, but last year we tried to split everything out. We could actually track expenses better this year. Because before they were all just coming out of one pot. Does that make sense? Sure. Okay.
But if,
I do know that's why we did it, to be able to actually track this stuff. In 5 years, when we look back, you're not just looking at one pot of money, you know, how many went to autopsy, how many went to physicians, to supplies and those kind of things that before were all just in one space. Very well.
Well, that 4464 and the actual risk tomorrow was like half of the coroner position. Maybe in the wrong line.
So is it 2 different positions, like one to pronounce death and white, that person died, and the second person is forensic after that?
Working on it.
That might be.
I think that is, I think that's what like to clarify. I think.
Might have been half, might be.
yeah,
That could be half a year.
It's totally do.
We're trying to get everything through this account.
Right.
Remember last year it was all just testing and toxicology and the other were all coming out of 45 ounces. So I think that is really just
Right.
needing to get.
Right. now.
Oh, what's your?
Yeah, every day.
We haven't recognized. Okay, so we still have a question on the table, please. You have an answer? I don't think you do.
I think we're looking to see how it should be split out, but it so looks like you got a contract with Headwater for 10,000.
Yes.
Would that be when they come and they say what the death is or
So
anything afterwards?
the contracted position is the one that the coroners confer with regularly. When they're on the scene and they have a death and they're looking for the doctor to sign off, and a personal doctor won't. That's the doctor who either says, yes, I'm gonna sign off, or no, I'm not comfortable, and obviously it's getting shown to Dr. Sikorica for the autopsy.
Before, and during and after.
Yes, 2 different things. So autopsy is different than the regular contracted. Hudson Headwater physician that oversees or coordinates with the coroner directly.
So this, the Hudson Headwater contract is that for 1 year?
That's 1 year.
And Glen Coast Hospital is a 1 year contract, or is it on call?
So Dr. Sikorica, they pay directly for the autopsy services.
Yeah.
So he's basically, we pay per autopsy, whatever is rated for the time being. And it's all numbers based. So if we do 170 autopsies, obviously we have to pay
Those were the-
for 170 autopsies.
Thank you.
And this is the first year that we went through the breakdown of the budget, like we worked with Al last year, to separate out all these accounts. Really, we had no idea how it was gonna shell out, because we were pulling it all out of one big pot. We tried to work with Stacy, the corners, and Sue and Al to be able to figure out how to best get it in places. Knock on wood. Majority of them.
I'm going through that at the town level, so I feel your pain.
So do you think that the actual then is actually zero, or you just think it's getting paid out? of
I think it's coming out of the wrong account right now,
Okay.
because that's the account we were paying it out of in years prior. It was one account, now we split it down, so a physician's expense is one, autopsy is a different account. If you look, that's why you see all the 01, 05, whatever, down below. That prior to last year didn't exist.
But we are paying both, so we need to keep both actually.
I think eventually we can merge those. But not right now. Oh, yeah, autopsy and our Hudson Headwaters contracted position.
Right.
They're two separate things, yes.
Right. So even if it's getting paid out of the wrong line, we just have to make sure it gets paid out of the right line.
Yes.
And show up.
Which I would assume is why you see, when you look down at the next one, that pointed out. It looks as it's about half of the amount of that 4,400. Obviously, the other one's what, eight and change,
Right.
and we budgeted 10,000 there. Where it's budgeted 0 up below, or up above.
Okay.
Makes sense to me. Everybody else?
Thank you.
I'm feeling the same pain. Once the accounting gets lined up with the line numbers. We'll know what's going on next year, for sure.
The other thing I just want to add, if I can, is, so we did work with Terry to make sure that the continuation of the coroner's incident management program, or their case management program, is continuing for the next year. That first year was paid for by the grant that Coroner Lemieux got, and all that new equipment just came in. It was just issued to the majority of the coroners in the last month. So it seems to be working well, and we're kind of looking forward to working with the new coroners as a couple retire after this, to bring them in and get everybody working in that system. It will help with some of the other areas, like tracking some of the opioid deaths and stuff that we talked about now, that we have to manually pull that data from the corners. We'll be able to pull that right from the new system. So it will significantly improve the ability for statistical tracking.
It's a communication, so gotten better because of that system right now.
I think the communication amongst the corners has gotten better. We're talking to all of them regularly, and I think as we look towards technology, maybe some of the newer ones are more excited to adapt to the technology than a couple of the other ones, and they have worked through it. I mean, don't get me wrong, they've been good. Been good actually to work with all of them. And we're seeing different things. They all kind of have their own, their own piece of the pie and how they look at things. So getting a couple of new people involved is going to be interesting. There's a lot of experience there for folks that are going to be kind of guiding them as they go in. So we're lucky that we have them.
Which line is the software?
It's not, it's in the IT budget.
Yeah, it's under 4071 of IT, and it was budgeted for $2,061.15
Okay.
for
Thank you.
next year.
All right, any more questions about corners? Oh, thank you. Weights and measures, just going down the list here, 16 is revenue, 79. Thanks, Tim.
Maybe you look like.
Don't run away, dude. You gotta come back and say.
Oh, yeah, I'll be back.
Okay.
I think I got a little.
Maybe.
That's a whopping income.
Yeah. Pretty flat there.
Well, it looks like it's on track.
Yep. And then 79. Slight increase.
So
Yeah, total budget.
You go first.
on the mileage, it was up in 2023. Now we're bringing it down by 1,600.
The overhead made in 23. Yeah. Figure
Yeah, but they're halfway through it already on the actual going.
Yes,
And all our prices on mileage just moved up across the board, so I'm.
that is interesting.
Harold,
yes.
you have an extra pen in that magic pocket again?
Oh, yeah.
Must have dropped it in the parking lot.
No.
It was the last thing I got out of the.
It's through, it should be through September first, that's 2/3 of the year, so
Yeah.
4,400, that means it should be about 6,600 for the year. He's budgeting 7,000, that's pretty low.
Probably through August some point.
Oh, no, because it's, well, August 30th, printed September 1st. Yeah, so it's not that, it's pretty close. He runs out and. He's got to park the vehicle. Yeah.
Last year was only 59, so. I think. Yep, yes. Employee.
Interesting, it really stays when it's only one person.
Yeah,
I can really tell that I was just thinking, it, right?
yep.
Any other questions for weights and measures? Everyone okay with that?
I got a question too.
Yes, sir.
How come the people that have to have their skills certified aren't required to pay something? If you had a meat processing operation, a small one, do you know that you have to hire the inspector? The processor pays for that service?
Yeah, because it's day one.
Right, but I mean, the thing of it is, it just seems like if you wanted to sell something with a set of scales, maybe you want to pay them. And maybe, I'm just asking, has that ever been thought of, or has that ever occurred anywhere else?
You would have to hire a secretary, the weights and measures guy, which would cost us more than whatever fees we're gonna.
Well, you might be right there.
And the other thing is the person's out having to maintain and pay for the equipment that you tell them that's wrong. So it's just another added expense to the business that'll get passed on to the consumer. So
Might be a state regulation.
more than likely. Maybe they do.
Plus, if you're in county, you're already paid for once your regular taxes to have it done. So it would be kind of double taxing.
Well, but that's what I was trying to get away from. Taxing the people.
Gotcha. So make it a fee-based service.
No, but just, I threw it out there just as a
Yeah.
thought,
And
because of all your other small businesses that have to pay for anything like that.
Oh, Dan,
No, you don't got it. I just
it just,
figured somebody might have the answer, might have
Yes.
been asked before.
I don't know if the fee for service would neutralize the added.
Well, the problem is, the reason you're doing it is to protect the consumer. Right, you wanna make sure when he goes and buys 5 gallons of gas that he didn't get 4.
Well, it's the same way with meat inspector. You're protecting.
Some of his examples is actually the same, I mean. We do pretty draconian things, then when they have to build an office, and put in a shower and get a parking place. All kind of stuff, so. I'm not sure what a fee-based system for this might not be a good idea. Be kind of odious maybe for, the vegetable stand. Like that, but
Yeah, but you're putting it on the business instead of on the consumer. And it's made to protect the consumer.
we're speeding on this.
Right. I just think that then you would be owner, we would run our own businesses out of business. Would be my fear.
Or not for $5. I don't know.
You get the state involved, it'd be a lot more than $5.
Wouldn't you?
I don't know.
You're done.
Well, someplace down Windy Hill.
All right, well, we can ask the question. Good one. Anything else for weights and measures? Code enforcement, page 10 for revenue, 63 for expense. and make a little more money for us in 2024. Did we raise the fee structure?
We gotta go up.
Earlier in the year, there's not a lot happening towards the end of the year. Yeah, well, it doesn't look to me like it's gonna be. It doesn't even like- But it gets back to,
Yeah, septic permits is flat.
The fire inspection, school fire inspection. I got 4,500 in there, or 48 already this year. If we caught up, so we're not doing so many or something.
that's what I'm wondering.
Well, it's sitting right there, asking.
Yeah.
There he is.
Yeah,
You're supposed to.
Well, you're supposed to bring.
Oh, John,
I didn't realize anyone was here yet. I just gotta put out the obvious.
he's over there. He's over there going, oh, nice. Ron Reynolds.
Who's trying?
You were trying to hide over there, weren't you?
Yeah. So is your fee structure staying the same?
Yes.
Oh, anyone, is everyone okay with that?
Yeah, you're right, so.
Is everyone okay with keeping the fee structure?
Yep.
Maybe 36 more deletions. What the best?
Well, I just ran the numbers before I came over, so which one are you?
The very top one. Building permits.
Okay, so as of today, that's, we're at 69%. We got 60,000, and I checked our permit numbers and compared to the last 5, 10, and 20-year averages. And we're right on what I spend for those, so we do get a lot of, generally speaking, we get more septics, more heating permits, so. It doesn't look like that, which is why I checked it, but I think we'll be pretty close to that 88 this year.
You predict more in 2024?
I am based on the averages of what we pulled in over the last 3 years and 6 years, so. 3-year average is 89, almost 90,000.
Okay. You dropped in fire for school.
We still have some coming in for that. Those are all handled in like 1 month period, 1 or 2 months period usually.
Budget of 45, you're at 48.
Yeah, because last year. It kind of rolled over into this year from what I can tell. So I'm still going back to the 45. Let's see, March.
Along those same lines, in 2021 of 80, was it 8,100 fires? So we got less schools.
122 was 18.
That's what I'm saying.
Well,
So
don't you
they're-
think because they didn't do the.
Right, they're just rolling them all. That's what he's saying. Their
Schools were closed.
Years.
Because I think some of this difference came in this year.
Okay.
So if you look at the 2022 actual amount, it says 1,800. The 2023 I bumped up because some of that should be rolling in from that difference, because it's a set number of inspections each year. It just doesn't always necessarily come in January to December sometimes.
Any other questions about revenue? All right, then we'll move on to 63 expenses. And we have travel plan.
No.
No travel.
63.
Increase in wages.
Most of the benefits.
That's little bit up in postage and telephone. Pretty much it. Yep.
Lucky, short and sweet.
Any other questions for John? Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman.
Quite to the train way down so far this year. Scheduling or?
We used to have to pay for all of our training, but since COVID, the state now offers it free. So that number is down. But I keep putting it back in case they drop that. Don't think they're going to. But we used to go down to Albany for all of our training. And we had to pay the company that was doing the training. That's why it's low now.
So it's kind of a placeholder, we hope we're not going to spend.
Right.
Okay.
Could you half that money, $2,000? Yeah, but you can always amend the budget, but if John's feeling is they're not gonna do it 2024. Half the money.
The average over the last 2 years here. For that was just shy of 2,000. We also use that for like purchasing books. You know, like our reference materials and things. But wasn't good.
Hear that, Brian? Got that number again.
From 4,000 to 2,000.
That'll look like. Well, then let's double it then. Double the money instead. It doesn't matter, then double the money.
Where do you want to say?
We just had that $300.
I know, well,
That's too much. So this is fast.
we didn't need to quit earlier.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah, wait.
John, is, the moving has been completed and there's no fees associated with that. You're all set.
Correct.
Thank you.
what about other staff? Other training you want to do besides?
That's pretty much where this other amount has been coming from. It was 195 so far. That's
Yeah, what you're not seeing is developmental training, not linked to state requirements.
John, do you have any new people coming on? They're gonna need more training than your regular people?
We have one person that just started a week and a half ago, but their initial training is provided by the state. Yeah, that's one big thing.
But we also want to make sure John's got. Yeah, we want to make sure John's got the resources. We've had some staff development. And there's a possibility we may need to use more. But that's why I'm advocating for, I know it's a good conversation on dropping 2,000. My vote is to leave them at 4 until we figure out some
John,
piece.
equipment non-asset last few years has been 0. What line has that been put into? Has been commingled with something now?
We haven't really had any specific equipment. What is that, over 500 that was up there?
No, that's non-asset, it'd be small, number. Under 500,
Yeah, so it'd be like, you know, office chairs.
what would that be put into office supplies? There is a
Yeah.
office, that's where it kind of goes.
We bought a thing to fold our letters for like $300 or whatever, so that would just come out of that office.
Bought one of those.
Take seals upside down.
Can you justify $200?
But $300 I could.
Still
a lot of Al stuff's all full.
So did I, the way you said
Any,
it.
any other questions for John? Oh, yes,
I've got a question, but not for John, for overall.
okay,
The shortfall between revenue and expenses is almost 600,000, it's over $500,000. Actually, it's 584,000. And everybody's worried about $300, $400, $500 here. I don't use this service in my town, and once a year I bring this up. How come I have to get charged for this in my town? Now, there was always a lot of smoke and mirrors on that over the years, but now that Dover and real property, you can sort that all out in the towns that use the real property service for appraisal or assessment or whatever, they pay for their own. Now, why do I have to pay for this service?
That's gone away, so don't even get.
Pardon me?
It's gone away. The more,
It looks like
the more county says it,
But why am I getting charged for the service? That's what I want to know. Where's the fairness in that?
There is none.
there is none, I never.
And it's easy to take care of. I mean, as far as the back, any town now, Fort Edward has their own code enforcement. I think Kingsbury, didn't you go back to your own code enforcement?
yes.
Yeah,
I don't know how many other towns are like that.
Your choice, your expense, your control. That's what you're paying for. You're paying for your control in your own town.
Right.
you're paying.
We relinquish that and have John do it for us.
And that's fine.
Right, so you're buying your control and you're paying for your own control.
So why am I getting charged for your control too? That's my point.
That's the one the county offers.
Huh?
That's the one the county offers, you pay an extra.
No, the state offered the towns and the town dropped out of it. Code enforcement was a town level issue. And then the county offered the service and people opted into the county service,
And in the
just
past,
like they did in real property.
and in the past, anytime that a county or a town has dropped out, the county's picked it up.
Right,
So.
right,
we-
and I haven't.
We even do some.
Why do I get
services for
charged for it?
Kingsbury on after hours, and if you
Just
guys,
started.
if you guys miss it, they'll call.
And
us.
he had to ask permission to get it. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, I'm not asking for anything, so if you can get me out of it, then why can't I be out of it? That's what I want to know. Why can't I be out of it if I'm not using the service?
I don't use unemployment insurance, but I pay quite well into it. Same principle.
Well, the answer is, Dan, you can make a resolution, get enough support, you likely could.
That's the answer. You don't have no pellets.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the answer.
Maybe he does. I would I think I think what we do, despite what Brian says is an excuse to keep revenue coming in, is wrong. You should not be charged. It's almost a little unconstitutional. The county is enriching
Okay,
themselves.
so.
Please don't interrupt me. The county's kind of enriching themselves by doing it. It's not fair. We should not be doing this. We should not be taxing their people for service that they pay for themselves and do not give. Now, Dan, when you do your taxes, you budget, you tax in that revenue from your people,
Right,
but then they also pay the county to do it.
right.
They're being double taxed. Make a resolution. I'll support it.
Okay. Let's see what happens.
Pay to play, which is, I think, is an okay thing to do.
But
Actually, making some money on here. Code enforcement, I think.
well, we're breaking even overall, we broke even.
Well, but
I mean,
that's less solar thing, that's for the.
Well, yeah, but the years before we didn't.
Are there any other
I'm
questions
saying
for John?
Average, we're
No.
breaking even.
Next,
Run quick.
Thanks, John. Appreciate
Back.
it.
Dan's out there.
That's a fair question.
Yeah.
Damn right.
It's really-
That's right. They all the
We
time.
can find lots of things in the budget that don't pay in.
Then we should change lots of
There you
things.
go.
thanks, Mary.
Okay, so, probation. Probation.
We got the
there.
budget. You got that already?
Sorry.
you
Yeah.
do. Dan, come on up. I see you have a travel plan.
Oh,
Yeah,
The state, the county.
Yeah, so I don't always make it 190. Each one was a little.
We go and. All right, for Dan, his, Revenue, according to him anyways, on 9. And no expense, 55.
I have a question on expense, but you're in the revenue part, right?
Any questions on revenue?
Slow down.
9.
You got me all wound up on my head of myself.
All excited?
The other day.
Revenue is the same.
Looks pretty flat to me. Not that you're out there trying to do this.
Well, some of our businesses, we less for this calendar year because our rent, which hopefully will be reflected in our insurance claim. We rented to Roll. Because of the water damage, Roll has not been able to come into our office space for several months, since June 3rd. So that reduction in rent is also something that is an insurance, at least a claim that we could try to get back. It's not, and it's not, but I think that it should be brought up as part of the conversation. Now, it's not a significant amount of money, but it's still real money. Other than that, we had discussed last year, raise the age grant funding was, it's a year by year, request approval process. They haven't made it part of regular funding in any way. So we requested it. We did not hear anything yet. There's always a very large lag time on that. Plus it's whatever your usage is. So it's based on any numbers, and our plan was not on programs or specific cases. It was our original plan that we made with your body was that our department went from 35 to 40 hours. That 5 hours in between was included as overtime. So the state pays us that 5 hours regardless of the amount of cases we have. So it's good for the county. Thank God everyone's out.
But you don't know if it's coming.
We don't know if it's coming. And it happens never more than 95 unless we can articulate some drastic change in our county. And we haven't seen a number that would warrant that. But that's something that's immediately forwarded to the chairman. Chairman receives it when I receive it, actually, we get the notifications from the state when anything he receives. We receive it.
Okay, now Matt.
I'm gonna make an assumption. So under regular earnings, it's up like 10%. So is that because we added somebody as a person, a new person recently that wasn't in this year's budget, but now is in the budget that is in next year?
We have a title change too, so we had a typist go to the secretary and director, which equates for 20 of something of that. The other one was a staffing pattern adjustment. So right before I submit these to your body, I send it to personnel and make sure I'm in line with what I should be doing, especially because the new transition period, they told me that I was under on my staffing. I had an unfunded position in my staffing. Probation assistant. It actually showed up when I received mine as vacant, but they said it was unfunded. I funded it. At this point, I don't have anybody to backfill them with at this point, so that's where that number.
Okay, so there's really an additional person in the 24 budget that wasn't in the 23 budget.
Correct.
Okay, and plus some adjustments.
Yeah.
I get it. Thank you.
Dan? Oh, I'm sorry, Bob.
Two things. Number one, I think it's really funny to have the on-call also be called, that's hilarious, but subcontract, tell me what subcontract.
Subcontractors are, we have polygraphs, so we have people that come in, and it's also drug screening outline. So
Investigate.
yeah, well, it's for flex funds only unless there's we've had that time where Judge Deegan has ordered something different. We have to have them come down on a different case. But 99.9% of the time it's sex offenders, and it has to be done as part of the state aid package. Every year I have to certify that we are doing certain things for populations of defendants, and sex offenders are very specific. They have a checklist of, are you doing these things? And polygraphs is one of them, and that's where that line comes in. And
And sometimes that line does not get depleted because we try to get the clients to pay for it if they can. If they cannot, then we pay for what they can. And some people actually make payments to us. So if we front it to the polygraph examiner, they can make payments. There are some people that are indigent, can't make payments, and that's part of that money.
So that's bad, it's not predictable.
Yeah, sometimes the county gets some of that money back because we can get some good payments out of defendants. Right now, we're actually doing really well with the percentage of probationers that are employed just because of the job market. There's a lot of places they get hired. So like a year like this year is a year that you would do a little better.
It looked like it worked, so.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing all around for the county and our budget. When our people are employed, they usually violate less too.
We're good, because they aren't in trouble.
Dan, page 9, back to revenue. Your revenue is way down. The state aid, is that something that comes in the fall? Hasn't happened yet? What's the story there?
So for 23, we haven't received their checks and they lag it, and they're having budget time confusion to see what's going on with them right now. They'll lag it anytime that they're not really collecting cash. And this is what happens this year. That's exactly where it is. It's them holding back funds. We've already received our award notice though. So that was sent to myself and to the chairman's office. And it's the same dollar amount. We were told 4 months ago to assume we were going to get the same exact dollar amount, which it's been for years. There's been no adjustment in that state aid money. But they give it to you when they want to give it to you, unfortunately.
You think it'll be in this calendar year?
I think you will get some payments in the calendar year. Part of it is
They will hold it till their calendar year ends,
Yeah.
which will be in, so they'll hold it till the end of March.
and their fiscal year goes another quarter in. So the first quarter of next year's calendar year is their fiscal year, how that runs. So we'll get some this calendar year, but there'll be a lag.
Yeah, they'll hold it as long as they can.
Either way, it goes on the books this year, regardless of when we get the cash.
It's actually very odd too, because my award for this year came this month. You know, it's not like it would, you'd think it happened in April, May, we'd be talking about that.
That's the budget, like.
And that's when I did all my application process and all that, and they get to you when they get to you.
All the guidance they gave us on the budget came in August, so.
Usually I buy it twice a year, because I like to get a grasp of what we need. If we don't need it all, I won't buy it all that year, but I have to leave myself a buffer, because in case you have employees, it's not 100 and something rounds, 200 rounds for your recertification. 1,000 rounds for your initial. So what you're purchasing could be for the year. Like this year, I'm hoping to keep some money in my ammunition line, because I got some former employees back that have already gone through their initial. So I'm gonna hold back on purchasing what I normally thought I was going to purchase. So sometimes it's in March, and this year I did it, did it actually just right around now. So it's okay. I try not to keep a ridiculous inventory, but I don't want to shortchange myself. There were a couple of years around COVID where Anthony said, "Oh, I think we're going to get away with a little less. We have some staffing and this," and then all of a sudden we looked in the safe and we were down to bare minimum. So I don't want to be there either. Yeah, so we're buying now. So that number, hopefully, I'm not going to go over 2,000 on that this year though. I'd like to stay under that, but we're depleted on our training ammo. We're lagged duty ammo. They get that to you when they want to get that to you. Also, they'll give that to the large jurisdictions first. Very large city police departments, state police around the country, and then they trickle down to the small agencies.
But you purchase it, right?
Yes, and it'll be billed back.
Do you have to purchase it from a certain vendor?
We go through state contracts, so we get a better price, but what we do is we don't pay out until it comes. So, but it's all reported for this calendar, or this calendar year.
They get a lot of duds.
I have no idea what's gonna go on with the ammo thing that's happening now with the legislature. Hopefully that has nothing to do with us. because we have-
Good luck with that.
I don't have to submit everybody's background check because they've all had background checks in my department, so I don't have to go through that same process.
I have to pay a surcharge or tax.
Yes, you do, you do the contract with, you you don't use the sheriff's office, you contract it out. For the background check.
You mean for fingerprints?
Yeah,
Yeah, so DCJS, they contract with an agency
okay.
statewide. And if you want to deviate from that, you'll do one paperwork to change it. But I was going to change it to the sheriff's department just for my fingerprinting, because we do our own in-house background checks. And it was such a pain. So I stayed with their vendor and they actually set up locations all over the place. And the closest one is actually a kiosk in Staples. And I checked with the local police departments, they use them. It's the most efficient, simple thing on earth. The biggest issue you have is keeping the pay codes in your database because they expire and they're security protected, so you have to keep passwords to those. It's actually a very efficient system, and I laughed when I heard it was at Staples at first, but I've been very happy with it. Wait,
Any other questions for Dan? No. Yes, sir, Al.
In your carpool,
yes,
it was 7,100, then 8,900. We're on track for about another 8,900 this year.
we added a third car. And
This year, or you're going to next year?
we got it this year. We just don't have a car radio in it, so people are only taking it to court. Some places where they won't need a radio, just because they need a car radio when they go to homes and stuff for safety reasons. So it's driven, but not as much. So the usage for this year, is that what you're asking about, the usage for this year?
Well, no, but it looks like your budget request is double. You were asking for 16 and we've never spent more than 8,900 in the past couple of years. Even with the extra car, I'm not sure with the 16.
Okay, so this conversation, last year we had a conversation about,
I apologize if we already
oh,
talked
this,
about
I'm glad you brought this up for, and this is something you guys have been talking about, the Verizon Connect GPS of the vehicles. There's a monthly surcharge that can roll into that. So I have a question on billing and where we're putting it. Are we putting that in telephone or are we putting that in carpool? And that would be included in that. If I don't need that much, then I would not, I could delete that
So
line.
that service would either be telephone or contracted services.
Not in carpool.
One of those two lines not.
Okay,
Talking
But I
about the
think
new
that-
GPS?
But I think Deb's got it in her budget.
Yeah, it's in the DPW budget.
I don't think you need it at all, actually.
oh, because I actually added it.
Oh.
When well, for last year, because I discussed it at a committee, like mid-year, when I was talking about doing it, and that's why that's like that. So that's, oh yeah, that's a totally different number, so I can get with you, I can get with you and we can get that compared down.
We're just give with
significant.
Brian on what
Okay.
that decrease is, because it might be like $8,000
Yeah,
ish.
yeah. I want to just make sure we're obviously safe when this car's up and running full force too, because we're only using like.
Yeah, because she just went in on Tuesday and it was in her carpool.
Okay.
Oh, good catch.
When do you usually take cars during the day or after hours?
All the time. So, we have people doing night visits all the time, so they're out in single cars, 2 people to a car. During the day, or if there's sport they have to go to in the evening, and then during the day, it's running to a school or to court or to home visits, and so that's why they're kind of in different ways.
Is it more day or more night?
More day, when they do night, they put on a lot of miles up. When you go out to do night visits, you have to get out and see people that are working during the day, you going. Big, where instead you're doing, usually during the day, you're trying to do a targeted area, so you get more bang for your buck. But at night, you get who you can get because they're home, so you might be going Putnam to Granville, down to Salem, and then comes back to the county, so.
But you do have as much need during the day as you do.
During the day, it's way more. Yeah, it's just a busier time anyway. There's more courts open, all that, and the schools are open.
We're just looking to right size the fleet and we're just trying to.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely more in the day. Yep.
Thanks, Al. Any more questions for Dan? Thanks, Dan.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Well,
Oh, actually, it's staffing requests for next year.
so close.
Go over those two. Right?
Yeah.
I don't think you asked for any new staff, right? The grade increase request for probation supervisors, 2 of them, right? Currently in grade 19, you asked for them to go to a grade 20. Not the $5,400.
This is part of a larger conversation that Danielle and I had. It was one that I've had with her over the last probably year and a half about how the county sets salaries, and it's kind of I know it's very chaotic and it's hard to kind of get a rationale for it all, but when I look at my department and how I try to recruit people, we have specific requirements for jobs, and I can't change them. The state sets our guidelines, except for like those or something. Our professional positions are all mandated, and I can't deviate from those at all. So because of the requirement to get our job and in comparison to other titles, I feel that there's definitely a hierarchy in grades, and you guys set that. But sometimes it doesn't fall through as you travel up to seniors and to supervisors. There's some that get moved around, and sometimes as a budget cycle comes through, one county department will get unilaterally moved up, and then another one over here will get moved up, and you're thinking to yourself, well, those jobs may not have the same requirements as our job, and it's very noticeable for staff and staff retention and things like that. It's important. Now, I did say to Danielle, the county is doing a comprehensive look at how that goes, and I think we should.
Do it every year.
That's very important. And I think that when people get moved up unilaterally, sometimes it affects a lot of the other departments, especially the morale side of it. And I know that with my supervisors, that they've seen that, and I know what the basic requirement for a probation officer, if you're not hiring as trainee, is a bachelor's and 2 years experience or a master's degree. So that's a lot for, any law enforcement agency. It's you have to go to the state to get something like that. There's nothing comparable anywhere. And those jobs are a heck of a lot more than ours. So we're very lucky to be hiring trainees, because we can really move people more that have bachelor's degrees that don't have to require higher education. But right now, if you're coming out of school, you're not coming into my department. You're gonna pick somewhere else. There's a million jobs out there. There's everybody's looking, everybody's recruiting. And I think that my department has a lot of requirements and a lot of liability. And I think that the job that the supervisors do they're my only backups, and when I'm not there, they run our department. And there's a lot of high liability cases that they deal with every day. And I think that they should be put on par with that. That's just kind of my.
I got another request to increase my account clerk from 35 to 40 hours. And that's a cost of $300.
Yeah, the account clerk is our restitution clerk. A couple of years ago, I was actually going to discuss this with Al to bring the job duties up and have them look at what the person actually does. And if the title is even appropriate, because the amount of money at one time that they were handling was hundreds of thousands of dollars that they were dealing with. And it's something that's a very important job for us, but it's also something it's kind of tedious and time consuming too. So it's the only position that's not 40 hours in my department. So everyone else is 40-hour shift except for this person. It does help with office time coverage, because we stagger our shifts, so we cover everything. That's part of it. But
So
it's
you
also
have-
busy enough to go through. Yes.
Okay.
Well, also, some of the things that people used to do in the past in this job, there was a lot of reaching out to old victims. So victims of cases that were closed, or trying to find them, because we have money sitting there to disperse the victims. And people that have satisfied their conditions of their sentence, prison or whatever, we have to track them down. Right now, they're kind of just handled the day-to-day. You also need time to start searching closed cases, because I don't want to have 30 years of cases that are still open that we haven't gotten $45 from somebody. Some of these cases, it's less than that. Sometimes they just owe $5 and I can close out a case. We need to track these people down. And our POs try to assess the restitution clerk, but they need time to do it.
If you remember, right, you just got to come out of this reorganization of charter.
Yeah.
title change.
Yes.
Through the duty structure and.
And it's really important to make this job what it's supposed to be, instead of a little bit of everything. This job, this person is supposed to be handling accounts and accounts where people, victims need to receive their money. And it should just be that for the most part.
So there's two
Three.
items. in front of
There's one more.
Anything else?
There's one more.
I didn't put it in a formal request.
Well, it is on the list, for the probation director, to look at the base rate of pay. And I think that, like you had mentioned for your supervisors, is based on comparison to other, requirements of other positions, and that's others. So that request will be mentioned in personnel. Over.
We need a motion to release. No,
We're still compiling them
we're not compiling.
Yeah.
Okay,
and pricing them and extending them.
And then Matt's gonna go.
You're gonna get an email next week with all this, with all the data, so you'll have it prior to personnel and finance.
Yeah, we're still trying to nail down the net costs. Yeah, it's.
Some are funded, some are not funded.
Right.
Some are,
Takes a lot of work.
anyone have any questions about those three items? Going in for personnel review. Okay, thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Next up is design council, revenue on 2. Expense on 25.
I've been coming here for the last 5 years, and telling you guys that no change in the budget. I don't need any more money. This year we're on a different.
What?
Well, you bring it home.
I bring it on?
The assigned council rate went up from $75 an hour for felonies to $158. The state's picking up 1/2 of that for us, not the entire force. Last quarter, I think we just billed $86,000 for it, so which $43,000 will come back to us on that. We estimated we needed maybe another $400,000 this year. We based that on, we had 5,900 billable hours last year. We simply multiplied it by 158 and divided it by 2. And we hope that's where we come in. We really have no idea how to gauge it. We split it amongst the family court line, the misdemeanor line, and the felony line. And we hope that's where we come in this year, but again, we have no idea. Given the number of hours, we're taking a real beating down the family court. A lot of cases coming in, not family court. A lot of frivolous cases. They just keep coming back, and there's really nothing we can do about it. So that's kind of where we're at this year.
You're keeping the state happy.
Yeah, we are. We really are. I mean, the last couple of years I've come in for $168,000 for criminal and $250 for family. And we see from the line to way over that. About $400,000 estimated difference. I know we met with Al and Brian, and they came up about the same number that we did. But that's the only way we could calculate it. That's kind of where we're at. That part, there's another issue. There's a, you'd like to have permission to apply for a grant. It's a grant to aid in the defense of what they call Article 10 proceedings, child neglect proceedings. And it affects DSS and it affects the county attorney, and we wouldn't submit it unless we had full cooperation or every DSS and the county attorney was on board. One of the big issues with that is that we think we could hire a social worker to deal with like collateral issues with the clients and maybe help the client so they don't come back into the system. That's a downstate. They're moving in that trend, in that direction. It's a grant. We'll see if we get it. And we can do that. Another part of it, and this is where the rub comes in, I think, for the county and DSS. Currently in the legislature, there's legislation pending for what they call civil Miranda warning. And then if you were the subject of like a child protective proceeding, you get basically the same warning that you got in a criminal case. And that would trigger clients to say, I want an attorney, and that may increase our cost. If we get this grant, it's a competitive grant, and if, you know, DSS and county attorney are on board, this would help us offset that cost. Kind of where we're at.
So we need a motion to apply for the grant.
Yeah.
I'll move.
I'm totally opposed to this, because this is the cost, gonna upheave our whole county. I talked to the county, I talked to the commissioner and DSS because. And they'll pay something up front and they'll get it started, but this isn't gonna be good for us. And even if they go that route eventually, and we have to pay for it on our own and it gets mandated, it's not gonna be good for us. So yeah, you'd learn something along the way. I'm afraid we'd get the damn grant just because we'd be a cheap place for the state to do it. I think it's bad all the way around. That's just my opinion. I'm not on that committee. If you guys want to move it, we'll.
Yeah, you made a motion, she seconded.
Totally opposed. Discussion. All those in favor?
What are we voting on?
Motion to allow.
We're just gonna apply for the grant, but we're also gonna, we're not gonna submit the grant, like DSS and the county attorney. Approve it, we're all on the same page. We're gonna get this discussion with Nate, and like you said, we want everybody in the county to be on the same page with us. So we would just put it together, talk to DSS, talk to county attorney. If they say no, they don't want it, we can't come to an agreement. That's the end of it.
You elaborate. Why you're.
It puts a lot more pressure on their caseworkers, it puts a lot more pressure on the county attorney. Right now, 9 out of 10 cases, they don't even come to that level to where the attorney is even involved. They're taken care of. If this is the case, and they could all come to the county attorney, it just, to me, it's a waste, but that's just my opinion, and that's after having a discussion. And he's, I don't disagree with him, that could happen. But, you know, we have to be somewhat progressive and kind of get ahead of the curve. And like I said, we're not gonna do anything unless everybody's on board.
Supervisor Hanky.
Well, two things. Number one, you can't, the little Miranda stuff, you can't, you know, play the ostrich game with it. It's probably gonna happen. I think, isn't the other part of this, the social worker?
Yeah.
That's supposed to,
Yeah.
you know, slow things down downstream, so that would be a, you know, benefit, I would think.
It would.
Yeah, I'd want to see what the results were, because I had mixed emotions about how effective some of that stuff is with some of our repeat offenders, but that's an option that has not been explored. I think that'll be a good thing to do. But and the kind of mingle makes it a little more difficult, but I think at least apply for the grant, we can always turn it down.
And if the committee approves and would like to.
Yeah, like I said, we're not moving, we're not applying, you know, we're not gonna submit this unless everybody's on board. To get it started, nobody's on board, there's nothing happen.
Here we go, Gary, we don't have to accept it.
We won't even submit it.
I mean, if we've got the grant, we're gonna have to do more research, we don't have to accept it.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you guys, whatever you want to do. It's just like I said, it's progressive, like the social worker. Just stated that could help. I mean, there's collateral issues with a lot of these clients, especially in family court, where they just keep coming back, and, you know, every time we go down there, we're $158 an hour. They'll come back more with more cases, more lawyers, and just what's it.
Any other discussion
On the resolution.
on, yes.
Do we already vote on that?
No.
I think I interrupted. Yes.
Yes, you do.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks. Any other questions before?
Jason, say no.
You just want your testing to see if you're doing, you know.
I'm a yes.
So usually,
I have a question.
I asked him why he didn't take this up.
You just assumed Dana's a no, both on most things, right?
Yes.
We sit back, go ahead.
Al, on page 26. You've got several items with the 2023 amended budget at 0, but 2023 actual amount 8. how can we pay a bill without amending the budget to be able to pay that bill?
So what we did, and you will see an amendment at some point during the year. This is one of those, I didn't want to try to hit a moving target. The way that this new state aid structure is, didn't match the way that we were paying vouchers. So we created new accounts that now mirror the way that we claim the money to the state. Once we know the magnitude of, once we know that we're done paying the pre-April bills, whatever money's left over in those accounts will be pushed down to these new accounts.
And that's all your dot 10.
So before we had like family criminal parole and such, now the way that we have to report is felonies, family, it's a different reporting structure. So rather than having to go through every single voucher every single time, if they're charged to the right account, we know which accounts are reimbursable. It was selfishly to make my life easier. I'm not gonna say it wasn't. But
What you're saying is an account, and assigned council is a new world.
it's a new world.
I mean, basically, we have a quarterly requirement to get the reimbursement.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, you'd have to go through every voucher.
At some point in the next couple of months, you'll
I'll see a whole bunch of budget.
Yeah.
There'll be one to move the balances.
Okay, gotcha, thanks.
And okay, but
At the bottom of page 25. Expenses, outside services. It looks like this is historically way overfunded.
Which is $10,000.
Yes.
That's for investigators and experts for family court.
Why is it so overfunded?
15 months in the ILS grant is for that.
That
We don't
would,
use it, we don't get it.
but wouldn't that be covered on page 26, grants outside services, which is also way overfunded?
The grants outside services, that's ILS money, the $10,000 is county money. That's all criminal based, the grants outside services. The $10,000 is for investigators and experts in family court, that's county money, that's not ILS.
Right, but if you look at the 2023 actual, it's only $85. If you go back to 22, 1,100, and the year before, 1,100. But you're budgeting 10 grand, it seems like it's just a gross over.
But if you budgeted $2,000, then you gotta take $8,000 out of the revenue on the other side, right? So it's a wash.
No, I was
No.
mistaken. This one is, if it's the family court line, there's no offsetting.
On that.
And page 26 is the ILS revenue, but same line.
Is it one of those things where it's as needed? Some year you might need 27,000 and another year you need $27.
Right, and what was, it's kind of like the appeals, when we appeal on that one, we did full board. We blew right through our $50,000, now we don't have full board, so our money for appeals is pretty.
What you can do is you can knock it down to like $2,500, knowing that if something happened, you just have to tap fund balance to fund it. You could do something like that.
Well, what we're seeing now is that the ILS wants us to use investigators, so the people our guys are using the investigators on the criminal side. And then when we're doing the family court cases, we're saying, hey, can I get an investigator now? So there's a push towards using investigators and experts. And so, I mean, whatever you want to do, I mean, it's historically been $10,000 for the more I've been there. It's just been $10,000.
And again, you can amend it knowing that if it blew through, you just have to tap something.
Okay, but if it is historically been 10 grand, does that go back before ILS gives us a grant to do it? So this number has never been modified to modern practices since we have ILS, because on page 26. You had the ILS grant for outside
Right,
services.
but ILS, you have to keep in mind, they don't care about them. Their whole total focus is just criminal. focus.
It's county.
Just.
So you can't use it.
criminal focus.
Okay. So why do we keep putting 10 grand in this?
Again, I think to help give us better representation.
But you don't use it.
But he's saying that the change now is pushing for it. Right.
Exactly,
This is-
yeah, I mean, they're using it, the people are using it.
When there's a change to push for, then you modify, then you amend the budget due to fact,
Which is what he said.
not.
This is the same point
I tried
to make earlier.
Daryl,
In the next presentation,
I was going to address this point. I agree with everything Tom said, but I was going to address the overfunding, which is part of the Harrell Herring law. But we're at the end of that. And I was going to address all of this, as far as we do have lines that are overfunded.
Right.
This family court line on his budget, I'm not particularly familiar with, I'm just saying. I was going to address the overfunding.
Well, then the whole picture, the bigger concern is what we're gonna pay out with the increased rate. $10,000, and I understand it's an issue we haven't gotten into it, but we may have a bigger problem than $10,000.
But I think that to Mr. Hatt's point, you could take a stab at even 5,000
Yeah.
would be, you know, I mean, better than.
Just to adjust it.
Because, and now what we need, Tommy, you would have to come back to committee if you blew through it, and that's.
That's
okay.
fine, I mean, like you say, I don't have any, you know, one way or the other. whatever I wanna do.
You should do it, and then if you gotta come back next year to amend it, you can blame it on Danny because he won't be here.
Unless you include dogs, I will be in family court.
No, that's a good point. So I think we're hearing, okay, to take it down to 5.
Well, the public defender is gonna take his all down. It's keep pace.
Well, he's not gonna take his all down.
No.
He's got money. I think 2,500 is good for now, you're just gonna pay the excess out of contingency or fund balance.
No, I'm saying 25.
I think it's 25,000. I'm gonna take 7,500 away. All right, do it. That's fine.
All right.
Yeah, I'm keeping track. I'm 7,500.
All right, I got that to Jeff. Any other? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Grant second chair.
Yeah.
What is that? I hope it's not buying 2 chairs for you, Dana.
No, that's for the serious felony cases. Instead of one attorney doing it, we have a second chair.
Okay.
A second chair. Wasn't an electric chair. Yeah.
You did that on purpose.
I want 20 grand. I wanna see that.
That one actually is.
A nap.
All right.
Right.
Not a nap.
You get into the complicated felonies, you really need 2 people. That's all.
Any other question for a sign council?
Thank you.
Concerning the budget.
Ron.
I have just one weird question.
Yeah.
Grants membership. Get grants to be a member of something?
So part of his ILS grant,
The ILS, that's ILS money. Yeah. It's not there anymore.
membership, training, mentoring, they have a whole gamut of things that they want him to do.
So they want him to become members of things?
Well, they want us to send people out to training. For instance, they want us to do, they want us, if you want to have a course that you want to attend to, say in New York City, they want us to pay for the course, pay for your transportation, and pay for your hotel down there. But nobody's ever used it, and nobody's ever asked us to do it. The only thing we do pay is there's an annual defense conference over in Saratoga by the defenders. It's like 200 some odd bucks a person. We pay for that, and I think this year we pay for it.
But you don't have a training line?
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
But you're, okay, all right, never mind. You don't use it anyway. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of the ILS money we don't use, and they beat up on us when we come up there, right, Michael, we don't use the money.
If we don't use them, we don't get it.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, Jay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Public defender. Start you on page 1.
Up to 7,500.
So what kind of revenue do you generate?
$1,000.
A lot. He gets a lot of money from ILS. He gets a lot.
We're at a crossroads with the Harrell Herring lawsuit, ends this year. And we've been overfunded, because as you can see, there are lines where we just have not spent what has been allocated. But I think there's an opportunity for us to maximize what they have funded us with by maybe reallocated. And we're at a bit of a disadvantage in the budget process because ILS, we're in the middle of trying to work out the transition of how we're going to be funded and at what level we're going to be funded. I don't know that a meeting is scheduled at the moment, but I believe we'll be meeting in October with them. And the discussions are about the transition out of the Hurrell Herring lawsuit and into funding that is similar to all the other counties. So we were with 4 other counties, the 5 counties that were an exception in receiving funding under the Hurrell Herring lawsuit, which was funding that was really probably at a greater percentage than what the other counties produced. So, but I think there's an opportunity for us to adjust what we haven't spent and maybe spend it in other places, which is why I made the staffing request that I made. Because if we don't have places to fill what they've been giving us, then we won't probably receive. So I did make staffing requests. I do have a travel plan, which is not, and I'm sorry, I did not submit it sooner, but it is, it's pretty basic. And other than the staffing request, the budget really does mirror the funding from ILS.
Mike,
Although there is one,
if the budget requests are funded, the positions. Do we know how long those are gonna be funded for?
well, I
They have
believe
distributions that need refunding.
indefinitely, I believe.
Okay.
Well, that's unreal. I thought he asked about positions. I thought there were 2 separate.
The 2 new positions that he says are funded will be funded by relocated ILS money, not distribution.
Okay,
What would be the whole?
would be the idea.
Moving money, we haven't spent one place to fund where maybe we would
And
spend.
that's part of whether they agreed to it.
Right.
If they didn't, he would maybe just.
I thought it was a general discussion.
So Brian, you're comfortable that this money will continue past 24, so that we're not locking ourselves into something. You good with that?
Well, we're trying to get there. That's why we're
There's-
scheduling the meeting.
There are also different streams of funding. So we have some positions that are funded by the statutory distributions, which are just the same money we've always been receiving, and there's no doubt we'll continue to receive that revenue. Many of the other positions are funded by the Hurrell Herring lawsuit.
Okay.
And that will continue, but we're not certain that it'll continue at the level it has been. So to Mr. Half's point about these lines that are overfunded, I'm not certain, and it just hasn't, they haven't made it clear yet as to what level we're going to continue to be funded. Because the lawsuit is set to expire in December.
Right.
And then that takes us out of the lawsuit, makes us like every other county, and we really don't have an idea of at what level they're going to continue to fund us. All of this funding is then under separate contracts under the lawsuit, and we're going to have new funding contracts, so. That we're at a bit of a disadvantage at this point in the budget process, but I know we'll get more.
Like you're good, as long as Brian and Al are shaking their heads, and we're gonna blame them anyway. You're having fun.
Sounds good to me.
Mr. Hathaway? Yes, a question about some, I see it's overfunding, specifically couple lines.
Yep.
Page 25. Carpool. Well, we haven't moved to expense yet.
Carpool,
Are we not, we're still on revenue, am I
Right.
too soon?
Well, no, we can go to expense.
Okay.
The revenue is what it is. It's the
Right.
same thing.
Carpool, 10 grand, it's been that way for years, but we barely even spend 2 grand.
well, and we have a county vehicle. We don't use it very often. We can certainly lower what we're budgeting there.
We take that down to half.
We have one vehicle and
Take it down to
they
3,000.
really don't use it very often.
2,500, 2,500, 2,500.
I get you another.
Now you got another 7,500, and also the miscellaneous other. That's like a lot of money for what, rubber bands and scotch tape, you don't spend it.
It's, well, we may, because we do now have a youth homicide case where we are spending money on experts. We have additional lines like this that are labeled miscellaneous because I think what ILS is permitted is for us to use it wherever we needed it. We haven't yet needed it, and
But you think you
looking
might,
at,
you think you might need that?
we may before the close of this.
But would you need 25 grand or could you live with 5 grand?
As far as your ILS.
And we have undetermined amounts at this point. I know we're not going to exceed the 25,000. But part of this discussion was, as far as this crossroads with ending the Hurrell Herring lawsuit and picking up a new stream of funding, we should try to have ILS continue to provide us with the 25,000, but allocate it to someplace where we'll actually spend it. So I've made these staffing requests that may or may not be able to be funded through whatever process we're going to enter with ILS.
All right, but you're okay with the carpool money coming down, right?
Yeah, if we haven't been spending. We only have one vehicle, and like I said, we use it to go to White Creek and we use it to go to Cambridge, but other than that, we don't use it that often.
Might be exactly the same answer. But you've got investigations at 25,000 and outside services, 25,000 hours. And I understand that, you know, one decent murder can take care of that, but aren't they both the same thing?
Well, outside services would also maybe let us get a social worker or a polygraph or something to maybe just as an investigation. We could use it for investigations, but we do have a separate investigation.
Well, I was just trying to get the.
Yeah, they're very similar,
Yeah, it seems like the same thing.
nearly, but I think the outside service line, we can get experts other than investigators.
You look back to 22, so 18 grand. So 25 isn't really that far off.
No, it's not. No, it just seemed like big overlap there. I wondered if it was all one line, but I guess it's not.
I think an overview, and over here, here, folks, it's kind of that, you gotta remember, we went from just, what, half a dozen part-time defenders to a whole group, plus an assigned counsel, all because the state threw all this money in to change the criminal justice system. And as a result of all that, you now have Discovery, we have more people in the DA's office, we have your sheriff's department. This is all expanded on so far state dollars, except for what the counties put into the DA's office and the sheriff's department. This is getting ready to roll back. The state's broke. We're reading it every day now. They're just gonna mandate it and start bringing that funding down. The funding isn't gonna last. There's no reason to think it will last.
Not the overfunding.
Right,
Yeah.
that's gonna go away.
But if we have.
And I'm not even sure if general funding.
But maybe if we have places to allocate.
Right.
They might have no choice.
He's on the right line. Let's see if we can allocate it so we can maybe conserve some of what they're sending us. But
Otherwise, they're just gonna take, well, you didn't spend it, so.
yeah, 5 years from now, you'll see the disaster it really became. What? Just where we're at.
Yes, ma'am.
Two questions on the office equipment. Made the move about the office equipment, it shows in the actual amount. But the amount staying the same. Do you need to have more office equipment or?
No, I don't imagine so. I'm not exactly sure what line you're looking at.
I'm looking at line 2010 on equipment,
Office equipment,
office equipment. Yeah,
page 24.
2023 on page 24
Yeah.
was 15,000. Right, that's what the.
No, that- I think that was for
Redoing
the office
Right.
renovation, and it could come down. But one caveat is that might actually be another overfunded ILS line.
Okay,
I'd have to check the revenue side, because I believe it is.
Yeah, I think that was fun.
I do, and I think it's just, they funded it at 15.
and the other question is on.
Yeah.
Does any of this include housing if you need it?
Include,
Housing if you need it for you?
no,
They defend them, they don't house them.
Okay.
So bottom line is more to come on like expenses and income.
We're sort of at that crossroads with the contract switching over. But I did make, if you want to review the staffing request, I made a request for a social worker, an investigator, and to convert a part-time attorney to a full-time.
Right, and this is all subject to whatever, or some of them are subject to whatever comes out of that.
Right.
So we'll know that. So we be.
Right.
We might not. know.
And I can report at the next
Personnel.
public safety, is there any progress we've had with in the juvenile service.
Very nice, Mike.
Good. Any more questions for Mike? Changing budget? Thanks, Mike. Thank you. All right. Public safety, EMS fire. All right, we're gonna discuss advisory board first before we hit the budget. Go ahead.
So it's just a resolution for an appointment to the EMS Advisory Board, for Regina Ladd from West Forty.
Move it.
Moved by Dave, do I have a second? Dana, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Uh,
Thank you, sir.
Ask for another resolution as the result of the last finance meeting. So Roger and I met the other day and we're working on it. So a resolution for the chairman to sign a site access agreement between the county and Cellco Partnership to access our Little Birch Hill site
So
to.
move.
Do I have a second? Second by Sue. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Excellent.
3640.
Please keep that project.
Moving.
All right.
We're doing 3640 first.
Page 10 and 64.
Page 10 and
64.
64. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Must be the grants are put in here until you actually get them now. A couple 150 that they get every year, but it's not put in the budget until it happens.
No, I have to add them or we have to tax form. Well, I usually end up adding them when I bring the budget because they always show up. We're just never quite accurate with the numbers.
Gotcha.
We do look at, we're gonna get about the same.
You know, they're going down by a small amount every year.
Any questions on revenue? Go ahead, Al.
Is that a consideration been given, is this request to the item that you just got a resolution?
I don't think, I don't know if it'll be,
That too. Okay.
if it'll be mature enough for a 2024 conversation, but I'll definitely bring it
Fair
in.
to ask.
We're working on the actual that agreement.
Certainly will come in as amendment to the budget if it is realized that time.
And the Vermont departments
Yes,
for the 50,000 was that. The state of Vermont or
no, that's a contract that we have with the 10 departments that we've dispatched for. That we've had since the 80s.
thank you.
Okay, who in Vermont pays for that?
The departments or the towns, depending on how it's set up.
Do you have multiple contracts?
Yeah, because they're all individual towns and departments.
Is Sandy in there?
No, they're not.
Just asking.
Any other questions for revenue? Okay, hearing none, I guess we move on to page 64. Thanks. On page We have an increase in our salaries, wages, and benefits. Commensurate with others. What's not in here is
Last chance.
contract. Correct? Yeah. Correct.
Yeah, no,
Only non-union employees.
Oh. Just want to make sure everybody was aware of that. Okay.
We haven't got there yet, have we? Yeah. Len, what color is that chair you're buying for $3,000? Gold?
Same color as the rest of them, Mr. Knapp. That's the maintenance contract that you agreed to.
$3,000 a chair.
Yes, sir.
Used to be
No,
18.
it's 150. 15. That's
Gets us 2 chairs.
the last
Oh,
time we
so
discussed
that's
this
one.
a few years ago was we went on
So you're
maintenance
okay
on
at
15 chairs every year, so we could appease you.
So two at 1,500 instead of one at 3,000.
Oh, what a deal.
Come down, yeah.
Is that
I
state?
get,
That's
Glenn
why we
gets
stated
extra
it.
credit for having to type that in there. That's-
Oh, that might be my first note.
I mean, the chairs down in the call center are a little higher end chair,
Yeah, they're Minuteman silo chairs.
yeah.
They're on a 5-year cycle, so they're 5-year covered. Bumper to bumper warranty. Play parts every.
You know,
I like the bumper to bumper warranty.
at the December meeting, when you retire, maybe they'll give you a chair instead of a plaque.
Cycle out.
Let's cycle out one.
Yeah, it's-
Cycle it out.
Spray painted gold.
Yeah,
$1,000.
Yeah, how much, what do they do with the old?
Any other questions about,
Used to go to the county clerks. EMP.
Less than $1.
Yeah, I think that line's overfunded. Brian, take it down to 2,500.
we'll have you sit in that chair for 24/7. We'll see how your legs.
Who sits in a chair for 24 hours, 7 days a week?
They're down quite a bit.
Are they there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week?
Somebody's here.
Nobody's in that chair. Are those chairs load rated or that's the sheriff?
Gotta get the last one in.
Okay. Any other questions about this chair? Expenses. I'm on page 66, if anybody else is there.
You know, our maintenance contract go way up.
So with some of that, some of those were previously grant funded maintenance contracts.
Gotcha.
But I would have expected your telephone line to go down with the landlines going to IT.
That's for the 911. Yeah, that's the 911, and we still have.
You don't have any savings from the transit to Terry's budget?
Not that we've seen yet. We don't know how that is. So we have all those outside PD lines that still come into us on top of all of our copper lines that we're paying.
Not all of our stuff is PBX. We still have a few.
Any of your Vivo IP lines should be being charged in Terry's budget.
Right.
So we may be able to do that once you have to remember, we have 2 sets of them. We have a set that comes into the 911 phones that are voice over IP lines, but we have transitions that go through network to copper. And we have the backup ones that sit there that are just the county VoIP. Those are the ones that typically aren't used. They kind of are hot standby if we have failures.
The old telephone chargeback that I used to do with your accounts is no longer.
Right.
So we could certainly.
It didn't
Whatever that
appear
number
already,
was.
so you should have already seen that.
So
Yeah, we should already see those things.
certainly set up and you can drop out what you need.
Yeah.
It won't be a huge number, but it's It's something,
So it would be April, right? Was it April?
the minimum is early as that.
February.
You would have only seen a couple of months.
Yeah, you only had
Telephone.
January to February.
Yeah, I'll check it.
All right, so that 40-10 line might come down a little.
It won't be a huge number, but it'll be something.
All right, thank you for that, Al. Every little bit helps. Your thoughts. Page 66. And AEDs. Other supplies.
Next question about the maintenance contract, that's because they were grant funded prior to this.
Yes.
I have a question. When Carrie was here for IT budget, she also had one unit and a whole bunch of money where there's like many units, so we can kind of oversight, figure out are these 15 items or one item? But I see all through your budget is also again, one unit, one unit, one unit, one unit. I think many of these are multiple units of something or other.
My understanding that unit is just that's how it goes into New World. Not.
Well,
You can enter it with multiple units, it depends on how you.
So the chairs could two. Yeah, I think so.
It's. There's different levels of training that people have received on it. It is possible to show multiple units.
Depending on what we need to replace,
I'm sorry,
or depending on what we need to replace, like batteries or pads, we may not know exactly how many we need to replace. We have 6 or 7 different AEDs. We're not buying any AEDs, so it'd be easy for us to
so
do.
that it becomes one group of something.
right, I understand that, but it seems like the trend is you just put one on whatever it is.
And that's something that I can work on training the departments next year and help them with that. Like with the chairs, you do have the ability to put 2 FMPs in there. Then that's something I can work with them on. That's on me.
We've seen it through the whole budget. It's not against you guys.
Yeah.
So don't take that.
Some have it.
It's
some-
just an
that's
observation.
just training.
Why would I say anything personal?
No, I just wanted them to know.
It's a.
Right.
Be the default. I went through the office harassment training years ago.
In the annual training.
Years ago.
He missed the
And it also
annual training.
So we're on page, I believe, 6 and 7 now. Any questions there? Emergency services? No. Okay.
I have a question. Of the fleet services for vehicles, that would not be DPW or Terry, that would be. The bottom line, page 67. These are carpool things, right?
We still pay into it.
It's the mileage. The block just explains it, but the line is right above it, mileage expense cover.
We still pay
Oh,
mileage
okay,
for the
all right.
county. Yep.
Never mind.
No,
There is no way. to but okay.
On the page 68. Finishes up public safety. Any other questions for Glenn? Hearing none, sir, thank you for your time, appreciate it. Thank you for the appointment. District Attorney, sir. Yes. Fire EMS, that's right.
yeah.
Fire.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't break those out. What's in that hash marks?
Yeah. I faxed down another advisory. report. Really, Noble.
Ellie Noble, the Accordion Rescue Squad, Accordion Rescue Squad, for appointment to EMS advisory.
So for public safety. Read that one more time, Deb, please.
He has an appointment to the EMS advisory board, Captain Haley Noble of the Accordion Rescue Squad. We'd like appointment to the EMS advisory board.
I have a motion, Dana Hogan, seconded by Dave O'Brien. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, guys, sir. Didn't want to miss it. Are we at EMS now?
3410. Fire.
For fire. Okay.
Those fire.
Fire. Page 10 for revenue. Expense 61.
All right, only increase in earnings, is just regular salary increases, no additional. No changes in grade or anything. Relative to equipment. No increase in equipment this year in the 2090. When we get down to 4070, you will see there is an increase from last year. From 1260 to 2000, so they added a new deputy fire coordinator. And we are still working to get our new fire investigator trainees, once we settle and figure out when the state's offering the training. Trying to make sure that we hire the people when we can get them into the state training, which is not offered every day. So obviously the cost to get them in to be part of the Fire Investigators Association, and keep up their certifications, is gonna be a continuing cost. So that is why you see an increase there. As well as the 4170, you see an increase from 2,500 to 5,000. We're gonna have to send those two people to the fire academy, and that's a 3 weeks total. For each of them, it is broken up a little bit so they can kind of work around their regular jobs. As they come in and be new fire investigators. And other than that, everything else has stayed the same. Their phones are paid for out of the 3640 budget, their fleet services are paid for out of the 3640 budget, as well as all their office supplies.
That was it.
Question. The Washington County portion of the fire training facility. They're popping up all over now. Argyle has one, the fire department, and Randall could build one, right? So they're popping all up more local. Does our need for the one out by the airport decrease?
I think the need is different. Well, what they offer is different than some of the other fire training centers. But a lot of them, I mean, we're seeing more and more regional, where Granville doesn't want to take a truck out of Granville to come down to Queensbury. If they have something they can do relatively close, because not only are they taking the truck, but they're taking 4 or 5 people. Obviously, the capabilities of everyone's a little bit different. Argyle's in the burn facility. You can do a live burn, and you can't do a live burn right now at the Joint County Training Center. So I don't know if the need is gone. I think it's different or based on proximity, I guess, to the training center. You want to add anything to that?
There is a field department use it. There's a committee we got going right now between 2 counties. Either find something that will draw more departments to use it, or decide we're not going to do away with it. But it is still being used by some departments, like the Argyle Burn building, that's a combination of Fort Edward and Argyle Fire Departments to put that in. But if not, everybody doesn't get to use that.
Yeah, but this really never took off to become what they originally thought it would become. And so who knows where it's going.
And there's been a change of leadership up there. So one of the, with this committee that's hopefully they'll get it figured out which way.
Set up was totally run by grants, right? And history, and the grants never came through, and it's never took off.
Well, we did spend what we.
Right, we spent what we still have to left.
So, we talked to Al recently about that, and with the new leadership in Warren County, trying to get the group to get on the same page.
Al, go ahead.
No, so that's, no, Tim's done that way, and raised my hand because we're gonna have to make a decision. I mean, we don't have to do anything. I'd like you to make a decision on whether or not to keep that capital project alive. We've got 65,000 to change sitting out there left over from the original, the original project. That you could, pull back in and do other things with it, or set it aside for if they do something up there in the future. So it would have to be of a capital nature, or you could just close that project down and have general fund say thank you very much. There's no general fund money that originally went out and funded it in the beginning with some grant money, if I remember right. But there's about a little over 65,000 left in the project that we haven't had activity in now. In many years.
No.
Is that 65,000 at only at that site? You can only use it at that site, or do they use it in other locations?
No, right now it's specifically for that project.
But we probably need to hear where we're going, is whether it's closing down.
That's why I did it. Today was the day.
You kind of gotta wait until they have their meeting.
And it might be more them having a conversation about what's the strategic plan for that site in the next 5 years. Right? If the site is what it's gonna be, and it's just annual maintenance, then we should close the project down.
Right.
Bills to 60. Well, the last chiefs and officers meeting, which was just a couple weeks ago here, that was a topic of discussion is what does the fire service want out of that? Or what would be a draw to get people to come there that you can't have everywhere else? So in order to get, obviously our folks kind of know what they need. Some of them is different. It doesn't matter what you put there, they're not gonna take a truck out of Hampton and come down there because they only have whatever 8 numbers. I'm just shooting right at numbers. Right, so when they take their 8 folks out, their whole town is uncovered and they're relying on their neighbors, they just don't wanna do it. They'll go closer to Granville or something like that. But if you could get some of those things there that you can only get in certain parts of the state, like the State Preparedness Training Center, we certainly don't a lot of money to do all that. But maybe some of those components we see regular, rail car stuff, those kind of things that we deal with on a regular basis. It may be a draw for our folks to be able to go there and train that they can't get anywhere else other than Risky or another area like that. But we're trying to get everybody to at least have that discussion of, we have money available, what are the guidelines around it and what can we do with it? Instead of just tossing money away that is not gonna be.
So if you leave it there, it would be specific to capital improvements to the site. If you were to close the fund, that money could then be reallocated to training, advertising, so you could do other things with it, non-capital things. If you were to close the project and bring it back. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're planning the future. Do you need capital money or do you need operational money? Right, because that will matter what we do with that fund.
Channing might entertain to have. If you don't set a deadline, nothing's gonna happen. So we tell them if they don't make a decision on this by X, we're taking that 65, we're pulling back in the general fund and doing something else with it. That'll either get them off their seat to make a decision or give us the answer that you've been looking for from the last couple of years.
Well, I just recently had a conversation, but it's been floating out there for a while.
I was gonna say, I think it's over 14 years since I visited the site, so.
I think it was.
Ain't nothing happened.
No, we've been there.
Freaking grown.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you guys have your meeting, let us know.
We take
We'll
half
add
that money
you.
out, we take 30 grand out of that, I'm gonna be up to 45,000 today.
I don't think we can do that until we let them have their meeting and figure out what they're gonna do.
That's all I've done to that part.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions for fire? All right, here's fire. What about EMS?
EMS. No major changes with one exception. Everything else is routine. And this exception lays on a lot of the discussions that obviously that we've been having. When you get to the, right now it's in 44, 40, 18. 64. Which is under miscellaneous other now, and depending on how this discussion goes, you can work with Al to put it somewhere where you really want it. Is to develop a program. Obviously, we saw a lot of the concerns coming out of EMS's training and the ability to have folks have access to training without either them paying for it or the agencies paying for it. Just to develop a countywide CME or continuing medical education program for all of our EMS agencies and members. To be a part of where we would set something up once a month that was around the county, all the EMS agencies can participate at no cost to them. With this chunk of money. Obviously, this is just an open the door starter, but it's something to move forward without handing out money everywhere, something that we can keep track of and make sure that we're getting something back or something back is coming into the program. The EMS agencies and the personnel are paying or benefiting from it, so are our communities by providing that training. Now, this is not your regular EMT training, these are the things that they're doing regularly on a monthly basis, so training on pediatric emergencies, diabetic emergencies, typically a lot of what you see is a flavor of the month where you pick certain things and you highlight those, especially when God forbid we've had a lot of traumatic injuries, those kind of things, and you see the need for that popping up. So we need to have specialized training relative to this. That's not something maybe that we see every day.
Would you be doing this annually? Or is it a one-time shot that allows for X?
This is just a start. I think we repeat.
We'd like to be able to offer that annually. I mean, the fire service versus EMS and the fire service, this happens and you don't even know it because it's funded by the state. In EMS, as we know through our work group discussions, it's not funded by the state, and this training is all that important. I mean, EMS people are doing, when you look at calls for service, I mean, our EMS agencies are doing anywhere from the smallest number, maybe 500 calls a year, to the biggest number, 35 or 4,000 calls a year. So they're active every day going out.
And it's all the same people.
And the need for training is there. I mean, it's just hard because you're pinching it into an area where there just isn't a whole lot of it available.
So this is an idea that the county would contribute to the overall EMS effort as having some degree of control over the content and the quality of what occurs. So training is one thing that they're just throwing money at the EMS. So it's any market progress, because we won't have any control over how that is spent. But if we designate a program that the EMS services utilize, we can assist them in deferring some costs and improving care. That's the concept.
I think we would like to utilize our own resources and not always outsourcing this. We have lots of EMS agencies that have instructors that have specialties, and to be able to use our own people to help expand this across the county to make sure that all of the EMS agencies have the same opportunity. Because obviously the same emergencies you see in Granville, you're seeing in East Greenwich. And vice versa, in today's day and age, it's nothing for any of us to see a neighboring ambulance passing through your own town, helping out. So really, we are benefiting communities as a whole as well as EMS folks. And we would hope to use the EMS work group and help identify a schedule. What do you see as need for training? I mean, the best information comes from them. They know you're doing it every day. So not something that you're just really setting or it's going to show up to. Like, we want participation. That's the whole idea of being able to do this and offer it to everybody, just to make sure everyone has a partner.
So Matt, to your point, don't know, but don't expect this to be a one-time shot.
That's element.
There's a bit of a difference between what you're proposing for EMS training. Because you're going to be training corporations, members of corporations. Roger didn't like that word member, it means something different. These are employees corporations. But if you looked on the fire line. Training. That's for the county personnel and fire. It's by grant, right? It's not the fire departments. But this one you're proposing for training is for departments, not groups,
Correct.
right?
For a program for all of the departments.
So your idea is that will help the EMS agency's bottom line. Where their expenses would be more for training because we're gonna do it for them.
I think our idea isn't so much to help their bottom line, but to help their people.
Well, it
Give
would
them
affect the
access
bottom
to
line,
the
but
training.
then they could take out of their training.
Right, no, you're right.
Right, some of them don't have the funding, or may have to choose to use the funding for other things. Some of them don't have the time to help organize it and get people together to do it. I think it's a multitude of problems in there. Bruce, you can answer that question. There's probably three answers to it.
I mean, right, in next week or the week after, Vital Signs starts out in Syracuse for anybody who has the assets and money to buy a room and things to do your continuing education to research. I mean, very few are doing, refresher courses anymore. It's like trying to find Dana course over there that, you know, something you can get to locally, and there are no courses being offered, I'm gonna tell you. So most of these providers are doing it all by either writing and keeping track of what their runs are, or doing the CMU programs. And I believe what we're talking about is doing this sort of thing. I mean, Cambridge Valley does it. They have a little coalition there between Salem and Easton Greenwich, but you know, I think we need to do this, guys. I mean, we need to start looking at the future, okay? The numbers are dwindling. We need to help whoever's left do it. I mean, you heard me, and I get very passionate about this. So $12,000 is nothing compared to, you know, certain things. So I think there should be all positive about this.
50,000.
50,000, well,
It's in the budget.
But they're budgeting 50 grand.
Yeah, that's $4,000 a month. That's $4,000 for one training.
all right.
All
right.
right.
I stand corrected then.
Multiple training, so
Yeah.
training a month or more, depending on how much we can afford. And how much we can maximize from 50,000. If we can get to a month, we would do that, certainly.
Would you have all the EMS from the whole county come, and then that would be about diabetic situation, and they'd all come to that one training?
If we could get, I mean, there's no way you're gonna get them all anyway, right? There's gonna be some that don't come, there's gonna be some that can't come because they're working. So either you develop it into a program, and the simple answer is I can't give you the total answer right now.
Oh.
Because we really need to go to the group and say, we do have some money to work with. We need to figure out how to make it work for all of you, because all of you are different, your needs are different, you all have different personnel. Right, maybe we need a certain thing in a certain section, maybe we gotta do it twice, we gotta do one in the north and one in the south. I mean, certainly we would maximize our money and not say we're gonna do 12 for 50 if we could do 30 for 50. But I don't think we know the answer to that question until we get there and can have that discussion. I mean, we can't even talk about it until we're here.
So you know, it's an outside vendor, you're gonna do with in-house personnel, it just hasn't been developed yet.
Well, is there an opportunity like, right, I know where the Cambridge one is, it's right next to Glens Falls Health Center. Granville's not far from the Granville Health Center. We got a new Hudson Headwaters guy. Can we incorporate some of those people in some of the training or not? Can we not use medical professionals? I'm trying to
So
see if there's a way to,
in order for
or
it
maybe
to,
they would even help fund it.
in order for it to count towards your EMT, refresher, research, whatever, it's gotta be a CIC, a certified or instructor. Right, so if it's information that you need to count, it's gotta count towards that. I mean, it doesn't say that we can't talk to Glens Falls Hospital or Hudson Headwaters and say, can you do that? But not every person at Glens Falls Hospital's health center is trained in emergency medicine either.
No, I'm thinking like their foundation, they have their groups that actually do outreach. Is there an opportunity to incorporate them where they're all working together? That, because they're gonna want you to do certain things, because those same people are gonna end up in their health center.
Well, just remember, at the end of the day, every one of these EMS agencies is overseen by a medical director who participates in a quality assurance and improvement program. Where they identify calls every month of this didn't go better, this should go better. So they do have feedback from the medical providers that they're reporting people to say, hey, we need to really focus on this, and this is being handled correctly, or highlighting the good things that are happening, which we all know happens.
Cassie.
I'm in support of having this in the budget and you guys coming up with a program. If you can't get it off the ground, there's no reason why we can't put it back into the general fund later on. I support giving you the line item and coming up with a project, because we can all brainstorm, but you're the one who knows, so. For sense and I'm
Thank you.
passionate.
Dana,
I think 50 grand is a little bit steep,
I don't,
Doesn't bite much, eh?
doesn't that much.
but you're gonna have, the EMS, they're allowed to bill. They have a billing structure, fire does not. I bet you're gonna see the fire department say, what about us? We're barely surviving too.
Still think we need to start somewhere.
yeah,
This past year, we've been doing that, like the EMS groups, and it's been really a pleasure to see how many come from other, of all the different districts, and they're coming to the table, they're brainstorming, they want to know about recruitment, they want to know about education, they want to know what they're heard. Throughout here, you doubled the amount of time that they're doing. I live in town, I don't know about everybody else, but they're on the road all the time, so I don't even know how they would get to different places, quite frankly. A real job.
We're Ticonderoga, Wednesday night, 7 o'clock.
So any way that we can
That's the
support them,
closest.
Yeah.
any way we
Yeah.
can support them here, they're coming here, they're coming to the
I mean, I
table.
sent you the one about Marks. I mean, 6 of one, half a dozen another. You want to go to Cambridge, you want to go to Time. But going along with this CME business, it has to be a CIC signing off on these things. If you're a state size, you're not going to get, a doctor don't do it here. So,
Right. Anything else for EMS budget?
Thank you for coming up with the idea.
Yeah, thanks for.
And we will run this through the working group, so eventually it will come back to public safety when we're ready to come with a plan. At least this gives them the ability to start discussions.
Thank you, sir. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Send me accounts 4170,
Thank you.
which you're gonna wanna use.
Everyone said.
Whatever you say, money man.
District Attorney, sir. Thank you. Appreciate you getting that up there. All right, so for, going, we got page 1. Page 2. That's page 1 revenue. Lots of money.
More than. So as you get to those pages, I'll hit just a couple of highlights. On the revenue side, aid to prosecution, which is a dedicated fund from the state for salary support for the ADAs that prosecute major felonies. That is actually increased $115,616 over last year. Although it can't go this way, but I looked at everything, it's a big pot of money. Those dollars actually cover the planned salary increases in our budget for this year, so at least there's one positive. I think more importantly, the state has again maintained funding for discovery in the state budget, which is, I think, the second year in a row they've used state funds as opposed to raiding other pots of money. It's flat over prior year, but that's still a success, and that money, the intended use of that money will be support the salaries that were new positions that were approved for discovery. Some important technological improvements for our office that is discussing with Terry. And then some technology upgrades for the sheriff, and then some expenses for the alternatives to incarceration. The sheriff is looking at an interesting query. One of the main things we'll look to do is actually get the investigation unit there, real copiers. At 3 a.m. when you're trying to get search warrants to a judge, and the copier they use goes back, and you have to copy 4 times 30 pages. That can take quite a long time, and I think it's important that we have better technology, because we have lost judges as they have said, we're not waiting any longer, and have gone off to do their thing. So that'll be planned money for that round. But before I jump off of revenue, I'll just see if there's any other questions.
Okay, on page 22 for expense.
So here, in the realm of pennies make dollars, I do have some proposed personnel moves, and requests. And, the two requests really become key for making sure one position matches what they're actually doing. And retention, continues to be a challenge, and I've discussed these with Danielle, and, we seem to be in good order. My first proposal is to remove the clerk position off of our properly referred to as, based on salary alone, that would be a savings of 38,000 and change. Corresponding to that, would be moving legal assistant, one of the legal assistant's positions to a senior legal assistant. You really need someone who's able to train, and oversee that operation. From a salary perspective, that would be an increase of $2,400 per year, and then change, title of, or I guess would be an upgrade, crime victim advocate assistant to crime victim advocate. And the impact of that move would be, salary only. The impact, I only looked at the salary, would be $1,754. The net savings with those proposals would be $34,227. Questions on that? No. Otherwise,
What did you say the savings was?
$34,227, because we're moving salary of $38,378. And the increase to the other two would only be $44,150.
You had crime advocate assistant to crime victim specialist.
You just said friend.
Oh, did I use the wrong words? Yeah, Danielle found, yeah, correct. However, Danielle has it is correct.
Yes.
Okay.
So what is it?
The 10, because it would be crime victim specialist, must be.
The crime victim advocate assistant would be moved to a crime victim specialist. It's a 2-grade increase.
Yeah, keeps them hourly.
Tony, under revenue, what happened to all your forfeitures?
The county policy is we don't put forfeiture monies in our budget.
But we have lots of monies where there's zeros, but the word is still there as to what it is. This completely removes all the fact that we do it.
I would talk to your.
You know why we do that now?
Over 2019, the fund, all forfeiture funds now, go through trusted agency, no longer go through general fund. You'll never see them again.
But they're there.
Because the account's been used in the past, it's gonna keep popping up.
Is that in our budget, trust agency?
No, you don't control trust funds.
But if you can't see it, it doesn't exist.
What happens, Supervisor, what happens though is each year, the good news is when they changed that, that had significant impacts across the state and counties. For us, it was really no impact at all because you have always requested each year that we submit our proposed plan for spending the money. And we're limited anyhow as to how the monies can be spent. So it wasn't much of a change for us. The difference is, excuse me, Al has to do a lot more work instead of us in terms of documenting. Plus, the realities of forfeiture is that good, bad, or indifferent, the opportunities have really dwindled, even in, because we only took them in the context of criminal prosecution where the defendant consented to it. But even that has all but dwindled away, but you know, that's just.
It's only drug case,
Drug case.
forfeiture is drugs.
Correct. Well, you can do them in all sorts of cases. We have only done them here with one exception, but that predated my time here as a prosecutor, but we had to clean it up at the end. We've only done them in drug related cases where there's been cash. I mean, you can take cars and search, but we haven't engaged. Yes.
The witness fees, is that just a new line, just in case? It looks like it wasn't used.
It will be, I'm not sure what happened with, those end up being expert witnesses, or if we have to pay our medical examiner. We something happened between when I put in my information and when it was pulled, but we're estimating that'll be $3,500 this year. But that's for sort of non-law enforcement expert witnesses. We have, if we have to use a psychiatrist or psychologist in cases.
So it'll be the actual amount used at this point, you think it's 3,500?
That's my guess, but some of that changes, like Peter Lemry, which would have been a case that we would have been using it in, he's pled, so that bill won't be high. It's a bit of a fluke.
You're up a little bit, carpool expense.
Yeah, that, I think some of that's the methodology they use over there, price of gas, but also we're all over the county chasing courts and.
Why, yes, you are. Any other questions for
One more thing,
the defendant?
law books? Is that like applications?
That is, so most of that expense is Westlaw. It's whatever we pay pro rata share for the county. Roger does a great job maintaining that and keeping the costs down. And then we all will buy, and we call it a gray book, which has penal law, CPL in it. So it's associated, and then 2 things for local court, which would be really to set forth a lot of the vehicle traffic law stuff that you wouldn't otherwise find.
It's the networking, you all, is that law books?
No, see, Westlaw is an online search and we pay
License.
a license to use it and it's based on the number of attorneys in the county. And then Roger's office divides it up by however many attorneys. Yeah.
Do you even get books?
We get, we get a gray book, which has all of the CPL penal law in it, and then some of the corrections law, some miscellaneous things, and then we get 2 things that we need in local court.
But this, when it says law books, that also includes
That's the
license.
Yes. This was a time when we used to weigh down the upper floors with a lot of books.
Sure, thank you.
Looks like with, you got outside services, witness fees and things, looks like a remarkably smaller number than we just saw from ILS or Zion Council. Why, I know you've got an investigator, so that takes care of part of it, but you don't have need for, polygraph and psychologists and all sorts of other trained things.
Correct. So with polygraphs, that would be done by the state police, or now the sheriff's department has a trained person. So that's a fee that, when it's done by the state police, they pay. Or if it's done by the sheriff's department, that's a cost that they would be incurring by having that person trained and available. The investigator is, for us, like, we rely on law enforcement to do the investigation. Even after arrest, we really lean on them a lot because there's a lot of things that still need to be done. So if we were having to pay a team of investigators to go out and close the gap from probable cause to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, you'd see it.
I got that, but you don't have need for centralized testimony.
We do, that comes at trial, so that's sort of the mix of the witness fee and.
Now, I understand it's gonna be lower.
Outside
You got
services.
Professionals that are doing a lot of this stuff. Have, calls for psychologists or
Only if it's raised as a
our
defense.
experts to fight their experts sort of thing.
Yeah, again, it will be like if it comes up in a trial, so like Peter Lemry, if they had gone forward with a psychiatric defense, we would have then had our own expert have the opportunity to evaluate them, and that has been obviated by the, so that can happen. We're in the middle right now, we'll know more in the coming weeks on the trial that's scheduled for October 30th, but that's still being determined by the judge. So those are things that are out of our control. The same for the case of Fordham. Those things happen and we have a response. So if we do, we reach out.
Any other questions for? Thank you, sir. Great. Thank you all very much.
You can't really put- but I don't know, it's gonna be shit on this guy. Yeah.
Sheriff Murphy, sir, for you.
Your next catch up.
Yes. Page 7, the revenue. Sheriff.
I had a couple of things. If you want to do those first.
Yes.
The first one is recognize grant from Department of Motor Vehicles, Governor's Traffic Safety Union. It's $9,752. It's for seatbelt, trying to reduce the number of traffic collisions.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
The other one, just more of a heads up that we're in negotiations with Fort Edward School to provide an SPO down there, which the superintendent's going to meet with the captain Monday. So after that, we'll know more. Probably see that come up in either they're very interested, and we also have a state police zone sergeant that's about to retire that's very interested in the position. So there's more of it just in the chance.
Sheriff, do we have any school districts left that do not have Cambridge?
And funding.
They're in White.
But you're K through 6, right? That's right where you need the most.
You never know.
We need a resolution to move $300,000 from contingency to the .1 line in 2023 for the sheriff's people. And basically it's because last year we signed the contract in December, so we couldn't change this year's budget in December. And they, of course, haven't run out of money yet. Well, we need 300,000 to finish the year, and that will change the line of what's actually budgeted for 2023, so it doesn't look way out of whack as you're looking at it today. But we need 300,000 for school. No, this is for the actual line for his contract appointments
Is this in finance or?
in finance.
That's it. Second. I'll second it.
Discussion,
What is that page contingency?
100, 500, with 880. We got so many things to come out of that. We got a paint truck coming out. It gives us about 480. Roughly, but we'll have the number when we.
Does the number in here? The point one reflects. That you've already factored that in or not yet?
Now, that's why I wanted to move it so everybody realizes that, well, no, it's on this year's budget. Next year's budget.
No change to the request.
No, there's no change to the request. The change is to this year, so.
I understand that, the 24 number reflects that
Yeah,
information.
right.
Thank you.
23 didn't, so it showed a bigger gap. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I think we have more.
Yeah, we do, and both.
23 to 24 increase.
Yeah. Yeah. If you send a small vote. You can feel like a form, you can, if you want.
All right, there's a document coming around here for. No, personnel.
Yeah, request. Before we move on, a question here. The sheriff fees, SPO, both revenue and you haven't figured in Fort Edward into that yet.
Right,
That will be in by the final budget, maybe.
Also,
we're hoping.
if it's not, should put them in at the lowest rate. The RL rate, that's what I'm in. Whatever.
I don't. think you agree with it.
Is the Greenwood one probably isn't even asked, that we just passed, these were printed before that, I believe.
That resolution just passed the board meeting,
Yeah,
and the effective date's today, so probably not.
right,
All right, so
because
the-
they printed them and gave them out at the board meeting, so I don't think it was.
So the 375,000 that's in here is gonna be increased by
By the two,
Whatever those two
whatever
contracts.
those two contracts.
another
Well, at least
70,000.
78,000.
I think we added two already in 23, so you can see that what that increase was. That probably what it will be.
Okay.
Okay, so. Before we get to expense. On the revenue for the sheriff, is there any questions about revenue on page 7? Starting on page 7. Page 8, that's what you see exposed. That'll all get adjusted based on our discussion.
Yeah, you see the SBOs there, that's, see the difference in 24 and 23, that's with two SBOs. The only difference on that line also is the very bottom. But that 383,957, that is, the Fort Edward contract to provide these services. It's continued on the top of the next page, which is page 9. Well, that's just, but that number on the bottom there is contracted amount to provide free services for.
Any questions, revenue? Yes, yeah.
On the commissions and rebates for inmates, okay, the show revenue in 21-22, and then we went up to 0. Is that because it's in a different line?
It's in the jail.
Yeah, where it belongs.
That was an accounting change that
All right, and then off to expense on page 5.
You know, the traffic safety, there's no real difference there, it's exactly.
I think before we get past the salaries and wages, sheriff had a handout there. I think impacting this going through personnel.
This is the request for 24.
Yes.
And these are all shared with the personnel officer. Personnel.
They're not, obviously, they're not about the request. But the reason, you start at the top. We looked at, because of the increase that the union members receive. Currently, a 6-year sergeant, total base without any overtime is 87,000. A lieutenant's base is 80,000. So for someone to take that promotion, they're gonna lose. Quite a bit there. So we're proposing that the lieutenant's base be raised to 90,000, which is an increase of 9,506. And then it's the same with the captain. As you can see, the captain's base is 86. And 60 or total base without overtime with the sergeant's 87. So we're proposing, we're requesting the $6,000 raise on that title. And then the undersheriff, it just reflects, you know, it just continues up the chain. In other words, the request for the undersheriff is additional 7151, and then the sheriff is 7,000. And the total is 49,000.
To add, these came to our attention last year. Right around budget time, it was a little too late to include it, but we did notice that the concussion with the union versus the non-union, I mean, they just, yeah, there's definitely an issue there.
Definitely imbalanced.
If I could just add as a side note, you know, last year, personally, I found out how important it is to have these people that are listed on this page. I had a medical incident that was, you know, pretty much life-threatening, and was out for 15 days on the bed. And, you know, the office just ran, very well without, because of these people and because of their training, because of the commitment to the county, so. That is a personal one.
Thank you, sir. After providing that. Going on, do you any other questions of expenses on 51?
I have a question on this sheet.
Yes, sir.
Brian, what line is a $49,000 increase probably over what you have in the book?
We got to put one line.
But is it sheriff admin?
No, yeah.
It's a sheriff
All that-
admin .1 line?
Yeah, because the top two are just comparisons. So the top two titles, sergeant and investigator sergeant, are just comparisons to lieutenant captain, under sheriff, which are not union positions, so they're in the admin group, which is
That $577,000 line is what you're
Yeah.
increasing.
yeah.
Any other questions?
I'm asking Al's telephone question.
Okay, go ahead.
Did that be out of there in Perry's? Or is it a different phone system like Tim's got?
You know, those are cell phones and air cards.
You have your cell phone on there.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what's in there. There wasn't any real figures on this one other than,
I think he's asking if your budget didn't go down. And for all the telephone lines, we would expect to see a decrease for the landline. The landline's now recharged to E. Whatever your IT charge was, we would expect to see a decrease for that amount. And we can look at that after the meeting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we could probably just double check that line and see that.
yeah, I have cell and air cards on my little notes here, so.
Yeah.
If that's the first one.
Okay.
I think that's.
We'll flush it out.
Okay.
Any other questions for the sheriff? Yes, Matt.
Al, when you go through all these different lines and departments, they all look pretty static. Then the final totals, it's up like 500 and something thousand, seems to be all allocated towards social security and employee benefits.
Some retirement.
And there's a $300,000 jump that's associated with that Fort Everett project too, right? So
Right. But there's revenue for that.
that has offsetting revenue for that piece.
Makes sense.
Yes, Dan.
Forfeiture federal, page 52. It's all zeros. Is that trust and agency too?
All federal.
And why is
All
that?
forfeit.
Why is the line still in our budget?
Again, because it was used, the world's gonna continue to print it, so I tell it not to, so. I can go and clean up some of these accounts so you don't see them anymore. If they had activity, they're gonna continue to show up.
Well, there's an amendment, 2023 amended figure in it.
And forfeiture.
Yes, page 52. $1,495.
The line is concerned.
It's 4900.02. It's under admin.
My guess is that's. You there. Let me check it.
Somebody do something in the budget line. Nothing in action. All right. Cleaning up the books. Any questions on 52? Moving to 53?
On 52,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm hoping and understand about the OT 1.5 at 500,000. It looks like I think the numbers. Oh, but I just don't understand what that would be.
It's overtime, time and a half.
So time and a half for holidays and weekends. I think so. A regular.
No, that's just regular. overtime.
Regular overtime.
Yeah, 1.5 is regular. And I'm hopeful. We have 3 in the academy now, and we really only have 2 vacancies. So they'll come out in August. We'll be able to add to our patrol staff, those 3 people. And then we have 2 vacancies that I'm hopeful that will fill as well. So that'll give us a total of 5, 6. So adding them in, theory would lower that number, but on the safe side, we look at where we're at now for this year. And we didn't, I think it's important to note that I didn't increase the number of people that are allowed off per shift because we added more people, so that's why it shouldn't go up.
Okay.
I'm hopeful that it'll be less than that.
It's interesting, to look at the numbers we're adding from Fort Edward.
Yeah.
Okay, and then also looking at, people in the front line often get stuck. And that overtime goes up, and it ends up not being good for anybody.
Yeah, that's why we didn't increase the number of people that are allowed to pre-request
Yeah.
vacation or days off. But you can't always account for people that are getting injured or, or whatever, but if somebody calls in sick or uses a personal day, always, so that's why we didn't increase it, so that's, I'm hopeful that that number is high.
Thank you.
Moving on to
But,
page 50.
Brian, the point ones are up like 25%. Is that a factor of Fort Edward plus the new contract?
Yes,
And is there a third factor? Are there more patrol employees than used to be or no? About the
Well,
same stack?
We added 2.
We added 2, so it's those 3 factors, okay? That adds up.
You see the increase in uniforms and stuff like that. That's your.
Still not up to 60. Still not up to what that.
There's a lot of factors. Just having factors.
Yeah, we have 2, like I said, we have 3 new academies, so we know
But
they're,
that should be budgeted,
yeah.
be included in there.
Extra 2.
Everybody, even the ones that need backfills, they
Yeah.
should be budgeted, right?
Yeah.
They are, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's the total one about $1,800. Okay.
Mr. F, that amended budget you saw is an old PO that was carried forward because it hasn't been canceled yet, so I'll take care of that today. They must have ordered something in purchasing that either didn't get delivered or, so there's a PO hanging out there, and that shows that the amendment that you put in when it was forward.
We can lower telephone by 1,800.
1,800.
Dana, put that in your list. I'll give you that one. You add your 7,500.
15,000, what's how much?
1,800.
Lower it by-
I have a question about the SPOs. Okay, so on revenue side, you have sheriff fees for the SPOs, 375,000. Now I try to come to the expenses. To find 375,000. The expenses, right? Yeah. So you have page 52. You have $905 more expense than you have revenue. And then on top of that, you also have a uniform expense of 9,500. So that brings your SPO expenses way higher than your revenues.
Yeah, the expenses for the uniform stuff that they pay the first year, they don't pay for that. So you're saying the revenue doesn't match.
If I look at the total expense of the SPOs, you've got regular earnings of 3,700 or 375,905. So that's $905 more than the revenue. But then I come down to the uniforms and I don't see any revenue that offsets the 9,500 expense on you.
What page is that?
Page 53, right in the middle, uniforms.
4159. It's up 6,500.
Right, but how do we get that revenue for the uniforms? Because I thought it's supposed to be cost neutral.
Like I say, the only thing I can think of is that is included in the first year of when we do a contract to the school. After that, we pay for anything they need.
So uniform wise, which is only another share, another pair of pants or something like that. But the school pays the first year for everything. I thought they were supposed to pay every year for it.
So it's up $6,500, the line itself. So are we gonna spend $6,500 more? Or the two new schools that we just brought on, are they paying the extra?
It seems really high. If it's just SBO, it's very high.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's what I thought, 6,500 increase seems really.
Where do you find 6,500? That's just the difference.
3,000.
3,9,500.
I can recheck that. I mean, I can't think.
It's about $2,500 per officer. So we're going to have 2 new officers, there's 5,000 there.
Right, but
Uniform is
those,
$2,500.
but those numbers aren't in yet. They aren't on the revenue or the expense yet, the Greenwich or the Fort Edward, I believe.
No, that was Granville and Sandwich. There's 2 new, we had
Yeah,
2
there's 2
schools
new
this
this
year
year.
in 23,
So,
and then we have 1 more.
okay, so is your
Yeah, so-
contract with the school? You're putting in your increases on your .1s, you're only putting in what they're gonna get paid hourly. But your contract with the school pays that separately. So where is that income coming in? I guess that's
Where's that revenue show up in the budget?
Yeah,
I'm not sure there is a revenue line that says uniform and clothing SBO.
So it would just go under the other one. So whatever those 2 SBO expense lines total, that would be the total of the revenue SBO line, so. That SBO line in the revenue section go up $10,405. Or that uniform's gotta come down to 5,000 for 2.
well, no, that would be true, but I mean, is that included in the rate or is it an
It's in what they're
added
paid in the
expense
contract.
when they pay the contract? I don't know.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that because I'll check. Let's see,
Yeah.
because it does seem high. And if you look at 2023 actual, that was whenever we did this. And we'd only spent 2,100. And that seems about right. So adding 2 more isn't gonna bring. it
Well,
up.
plus, I think, were we thinking 3 more?
Oh, no, there's 1 more for 24. Which will be 3 more than
That's what I
when we
meant.
did the budget, yeah.
Right.
So, I don't know, we did this a while ago, I don't know. Why. Quite honestly.
And it may,
But generally, it's just, to answer your question is, excuse me, it's just replacement clothing, and I don't even know. Did actual amount, so yeah, so I mean, that's,
okay,
you know, this.
so my question is on the .1 on the SPO line though. Is that just the hourly rate that you're paying them,
Yeah.
or is that revenue included that they pay for the uniform the first year?
I believe it's in the contract. It says that
Right.
they pay that.
And so that whole contract is on the revenue line? Okay,
So the good news for you though, Brian, is either whatever the number is, the 2 expenses have to equal it.
right,
So whatever the number becomes, that gap will be filled either way. So if it stays 9,000, you get to add 10,405 to the revenue.
right,
If that 9,000 goes down to 4,000, then it's gonna be 5,405 you added. So, yeah, your thought process is correct. Whatever the numbers are, the net cost is 0. Right? So
Right.
whatever those 2 lines end up being, that's the number that will go on the revenue.
But some of the revenue is our fund balance, right? Because we're not being reimbursed by the school for uniforms after year 1.
But
The county's paying for
The
that.
ones after year 1 should be in the SBO line. The SBO cost should be the costs that are being reimbursed.
Okay, so, but you're still providing something to an SBO that the school does not reimburse us for.
well, it's not.
Well, there's no reimbursement in the out years, is that what you're saying?
That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
So
And
that,
it looks like in 22 with 6 SPO, I believe, it was 2,700. So that's why we used 3,000 for 23's number. And then, like I said, I'd have to look, we're at 2196 right now. I'd have to look back at our notes when we did this, why. 500.
Sounds to me like the merged, that both those concepts in one line.
And the revenues.
But it is 9, there are 9 SPOs, is what I was saying, so.
But you can't really give me the numbers until you get that 400 number anyway, right? So, yeah. As quick as you get numbers.
Gotcha.
But there is a county cost in the out years.
Yeah, that's what Dana's saying.
So Daryl, it's more than the 2 line items, it has to go back to the contracts from the schools, right?
Yeah.
And clean that up, but, you know, it's working, you know, the schools are happy. And I can't imagine that being pushback from it because it's working, so.
Right.
But we may have to revisit those contracts.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about is cleaning up our record keeping, having better visibility on it.
Today's tally, Mr. Hammond, 10,405.
Add it up, David, 10,000.
Yeah,
In addition to the 1,800?
all right, so, back to expense 54, 26,000.
53,
Oh my God. you're all happy.
why would part-time regular earnings go up 40%?
So,
Using more part-timers
yes,
than ever?
yeah. And,
I think it's way up this year. I mean, we're at
Yeah.
90,000 now.
right.
Is it because the backfill, we still have open positions? You need part-timers to help that out?
Yeah, and then, like I said, hopefully when those 3 come out of the academy, I'll help with that a little bit, but mostly that's civil. Like, we don't use part-time deputies to do patrol functions, they do civil functions. So they serve papers, they do evictions, they post property, they do all kinds of stuff like that. That is what's driving that cost. Like, we hired more part-timers, since the state was basically on a lockdown, with evictions and all that stuff. Now we're trying to catch up and make up for all that. So we have more part-time officers than we've ever had. And we're doing more service of papers, more evictions, more of those things.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
I don't think it, that's kind of high, I think, but it's on, I looked at this year. and-
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
You figure that's gonna end the year at 100,000?
Well, I'm hoping that things slow down with, the evictions and all the stuff during the year, but you just can't. Can't predict it. But that's with the staff that we have currently, and things stay the same.
We started the process there's a lot of properties that the sheriff has to post for me when we go through the foreclosure process. And we started reimbursing them for all those hours now, so you get a little bit of revenue to offset. I mean, it's just a small piece, but every little bit helps. So we now reimburse the sheriff for all those postings that he has to do. This year, I think it was a little more than normal.
Yeah.
Okay, page 54. Good there. Any questions on page 54? And none on 55. Leave that close that out. All right, moving to the jail. I believe that's page 9, the other one. Corrections. 3150.
There's no real big changes here. The biggest, obviously the biggest fall, or the biggest revenue number is the Meals on Wheels, interdepartmental revenue, so 602,000. That's, again, it's estimated every year by our food services department, that they look at how many meals they did last year. Meals are increasing quite a bit. So is the cost for the food, obviously. So that's why that number is a little higher, but that's a break even thing for us.
Was it around 28 cents a new or something, Sheriff, the increase, 38.
638.
Yeah, I think that's what you said. 16.
He's good, he's usually very close.
That's not the neutral loaf, is it? You don't need that. increase. I want to try it.
Well, knock yourself out.
Okay.
I have to go to Warren County Jail for that.
I tried the loaf. Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried, when I first took office, I tried it, and I asked the guy in the kitchen, I just want to try it, feed it, I want to be able to say I had. So I didn't want it a little, but he brought me a whole container of it, so I just took a couple bites, and to me, it tasted like, your grandmother's stuffing, and she put a dish rag in it, but, it wasn't very good. So I brought it back to the control room, and I wrote "enjoy" on it. Exclamation point. Deputies ate it all. They didn't know what it was. And then they found out it was, so, and they all survived.
Any questions on the revenue,
Same numbers as.
same numbers? Okay. That, move on to expense for the jail 56.
Yeah, and the top of 57, we just screw up 2023 and the state retirement. Or is there a number? missing?
No, it's every level is in one line this time.
This is the same answer that I gave you, it's sort of, where there's multiple departments. They've all been rolled into one of them departments.
So there should be zeros in a whole bunch of other places that didn't have zero before.
But it's still gone up.
It's still up, but not the extent that you're seeing on that line.
That's one person.
That's joke.
The other retirement lines below it should always.
Okay, you say so.
That's the Alma retired.
There's one unit, almost 600,000.
Get retired, you can-
Good question. Okay. All right, any other questions on 57?
Yeah.
You,
Sorry.
okay,
57,
So-
retirement zero.
The corrections. Is in at $86,333, it's 31,51,121. Right, it's on page 56.
It's 6.
The 2024 salary, this is only one person, that's why it stands out. The salary for that position next year is $92,031. I think that's because we had a change of staff, right? Yeah. So
Yes.
yeah, and that's longevity, so yeah.
It was after I did this.
Yes. That's why. Sorry.
So we gotta add one.
I want the 86,000, 91,000.
92,31.
It'll take 6,000 off here.
There goes 16 or 10.
I'm not on the right line.
Bottom of page 56,
All right, so, but it was booked here for 86,000.
should be 92,31.
Okay. That's not my idea, so it doesn't fall.
He's awake.
Slow, but awake.
Take money from it, I know.
okay. Back to 57, we're good, page 57. Moving to 58.
The training ammunition. Cost is a little over $7,000 in 22. We're doing $5,000 this year and ammo gone up 40%.
We,
They're better shot.
buy extra, shouldn't say extra, but it was very hard to get a few years ago. So we tried to stockpile a little bit, so that's been helpful if we haven't needed to buy as much. Okay. But I did make a big cut on that one, to the, are we on 58, right?
58, yeah, don't worry, we hammered information on that.
No, it went up to the electric, 40, 50. National Grid, I took 65,000. I look back, like a 5-year history, and we've never gotten up to, you know, the 230,000 that we planned this year, so we've never even got close to that, so I did lower that to 65,000.
You don't get to take that.
Good job, Sheriff.
Yeah.
Since you mentioned electric, I want to bring up that we're gonna visit the electric again.
No,
Yeah.
cars?
They actually, I don't know exactly how they got there or what happened. They're trying to offer us 2 years at 8.89 cents. Just under 9 cents. On top of what we got, so I believe they bought the power thinking we would take the 3 years because it's so much cheaper. We're paying 12.2. So that will come up in our regular
Is that Mega,
finance meeting,
Mega you're talking about?
whatever the group is we work with. I don't think that's,
We switched to Constellation, I thought.
no, Constellation is the one that works for Mega. The guy works for Constellation, that does the bidding. So, yeah, so the combined rate is very interesting. It would be about 2/100ths of a cent more than what initially we could have been in at the 3 year. But the second time, everybody was over 11 cents on everything, and we ended up, we only went 2 years at 12.2. But right now, it doesn't look like it's ever going down, so I just want to mention it since even electricity, because there'd be savings going forward.
2 years.
In 2 years. 3 years. Yeah.
Page 59. I think I see a drop in your part-time, so that's.
Yeah,
Sue has a question.
So, yes.
I'm sorry, can I go back to 58? please?
Yes.
Under contracted services. Is that like the medical or is that like the Warren County or?
yeah, so the dentist, and it's the Eden Center.
Yeah.
And that, I dropped that 10,000 as well, just because no impact on those.
We have a contract with Warren County for boarding. We have a contract with Warren County for boarding. So, thank you.
No, we don't, actually, we kind of have we need to board someone.
Yes.
Yeah,
I just wondered where that number might be. And are we okay?
we don't charge each other.
Oh. The mutual benefit.
I
Right.
thought we sent back to Salem.
They get out please.
Well, that's how it works
We get out
now.
to each day anyway.
That's how it works anyway.
You don't charge each other.
Yeah.
No, they don't even go in.
Back to page 59, just.
So for one, we don't charge, but we could.
If we, yeah, and
Gotcha.
for some reason, if we have, we made the relative one of the correction officers in our jail, then they'll house them.
Nice.
What we do.
End of a bank, you know.
Yeah.
Just the highlight on 59, you drop in OT, so that's helping. I'm sorry for part-time
Yeah,
and
difficult to find part-timers in the jail, for sure. And we're really only down staffing wise, maybe 3 or 4. And well, maybe 5, and I think 3 of those are injuries, so there's not a disability or whatever, so those are, you know, hard to replace, but we have like only 2 vacancies, and I can tell you that from knowing other sheriffs, most jails are down double digits with employees, so we're very fortunate that that is not the case. And at one point, several years ago, I remember we were down 10 or 12 bodies, but now we're really are only down a couple. But nobody wants to work part-time, I guess. So.
Sheriff, can I ask you,
Sure.
the part-time correction officers?
Yeah.
A few years ago, we were talking to civil service, right, because they were telling us they had to be competitive, they had to take tests. And you wrote a letter and you tried to advocate to get them to be non-competitive, so you could recruit more
Yes.
part-time. Is that still the same? Is
They have to,
they have to take a
Yeah,
test to be a part-time?
yeah.
Maybe we could address that again. and you can't get anybody.
If there's, obviously, one part of that is if there's no list. If there's nobody's, there's no big,
So you can't
For
even
the
get
gym.
full-time.
Yeah, so
Wow.
usually we hire off the list and then there's not enough to make a list, so then we can hire provisional part-time, just like we do full. But the good thing is on the patrol side, we got 55 take. Test, so
great.
yeah, that is because it was, I think. 34, I think it was 12. So.
Can I have one more question?
Yeah, go ahead.
On the training, is that 1,500? And that's about, it looks like a standard amount. What is that, like a Red Cross training or something, or what type of training do you offer? for
Is
CO?
it page 59?
58.
Oh. Oh, education, training, staff development. Yeah, that covers everything. Mostly training conferences and things that people go to.
So not necessarily frontline COs inside the jail, because that's not an easy job. And
No, it is. I mean, it includes everybody.
It seemed like much money. 1,500.
Yeah, we do a lot of in-house. Fortunately, we have a lot of certified instructors that do our own. And then we partner with Saratoga and Warren. And we'll use their instructors for certain things and they'll use ours. And we put on joint academies together. So we'll have, the first part of it at our place and then the second part of it at their place or whatever. But use a lot of our own staff. We're fortunate to have certified instructors on general topics. I think. Do a lot of the training for them. So it's mostly for, expenses for going to outside training. It's not covered.
thank you.
Back to page. This,
Well, I'm ready for 59. Is that where you go?
yeah, 15.
I have a question on top of 59. It's Ninny inmate supplies, non-medical, 60,000. How did we get 2023 so wrong at 20,000?
It's mostly, the title of this is misleading too. It's mostly Glens Falls Hospital billing. And I think a lot of those were COVID tests, is that right? The COVID billing for.
Oh, that was paid for
I
by.
don't know why 20,000, why we only had 20,000.
Well, I think 22 was so high and 21 was so high was because of the amount of COVID testing.
Oh, yeah.
that we're doing.
Yeah.
So they're charging us for every time we tested an inmate.
I thought that was supposed to be free from the vet, it's all you go.
We tested them, but they charged for the lab. And I tried to negotiate with them. Yeah, and then I remember 21, there was a lot of that money was from 20, the same thing in 22, the billing was linked to us, so.
You're jumping that up to 60 for next year.
Yeah,
But if you look at 22, actual was 63, so 60 is about right. I just don't understand why all those 20,000s come in. It was,
well, we were, down to almost hardly any testing. But I think that's why we went so low in 23. But we're already over, in September, over the 20. And then I think we just projected out. Added to, just in case. But
so is this the case that the 23 numbers were correct and your 24 request is too high?
Well, the 23 number wasn't correct. We're over it now. And I think, I don't want to say, it's because we get the bills late, but we get the bills late. So I think we looked at where we're at now and what we've been paying per month and how many tests are being done. So,
We also don't know what we're gonna get for inmates with their medical needs. Right now, we have someone that gets dialysis 3
Yeah.
times a week.
that's,
So that's gonna be $20,000.
And we're actually now, he said, he's a non-sentence inmate who's going to be sentenced, so that's gonna be a big bill. That's probably why.
Good question there. Anything else on 59? Okay. Moving on to page 60. Everything's pretty much in line there. Insurance
Kitchen
increases.
staff is what I'm saying.
Yep. Commensurate increases. Page 61.
They're changing your hang up, Debbie. Even the computer's tired, is it?
Yeah,
Here's a,
all right. And then ending up on page 61 with the stop UI programs. Any questions for the sheriff and budget? Thank you so much. Appreciate your patience. Circling back around, any other business before the public safety committee? Hearing none, just summarize, I got some follow-ups on eight signatures, paid for service on code enforcement, code concepts. And then we got a follow-up on the fire training center that will bring back the committee. Finance?
Yeah, so we started the day, at 4.5 million in fund balance. 5.9, so we were gaining. We didn't move much, so we still need to get a couple million out to be where we can be. Either increase in revenue or decrease in expenses. So, and we still have not seen what the staffing requests are yet, so. Either way, about 2 million of it. In 2026, we will recognize the pilot Champlain Electric. And right now, I want to bring it up now because it's going to get talked about over the next 2 years. When we do the 26 budget, that's going to be your one opportunity to maybe get some of this back. More than likely, you have to override the cap to take the pilot, even if you only raise taxes 2%. Well, in other words, the pilot is as big as your tax increase. So if you didn't override the cap and you stayed flat, you wouldn't get any benefit that way. And right now, the way the state's broke, that looks like it's very much on the table. It's something we'll have to do. We're lucky that they're actually building it and they might make it by 26. So our biggest job now is to bridge the gap between 24 and 26 with the funds we have. And who knows what that future brings. But right now, everything's weak at the state and federal level because they did it to themselves. And programming and funding. And so they're gonna take it away from us. To balance their act.
Is there a capital component to what the county is gonna get? Because the towns get pilot and a capital. And the capital.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's not part of the cap. Did the county get a host benefit package or was that just towns?
We were all split 50/50.
Yeah. So that's gonna be in play. The other thing that's gonna come up. Warren and Saratoga are already trying to get us to go to 8%. That's out there. That's gonna be a discussion. So. Want everybody to know that.
Why do they want us to go? Are they afraid that people are gonna come to us to buy?
Because we're the only, no, we don't have enough places to buy.
But why do they care?
What, they all would rather go to once because we all have the same representatives. So the problem is, if we had to go there and those two had gone, we probably couldn't get there because they wouldn't do it just for us. With 3 counties, they have the opportunity, whether we want to or not, I have no idea. I'm just telling you it's out there and it's stronger than it's, I'd say it's.
Are they afraid if we don't go with them that they won't get it because they're just too?
Because we have the same people that represent us. So it has to be a complete front. Or there are people getting online.
Maybe they can pay us.
So,
Hey,
so that's,
Washington County is a leader, not a follower. We're not gonna-
Leading
we're not
it.
gonna tax our people, and if we get more tax revenue, what are we gonna do with it?
Spend it.
You wanna do that? No. Budget right now.
that's where the discussion will be at, and I'm just letting you know that these are the 2-year discussions, because we need to get from 24 to 26. Me, the only way I'd be in favor of the 8%, there's a way that we could lower taxes enough that there was a 20-year plan where it would make sense. I don't know if there is such a plan. But
No, that's right.
Plus it's a regressive tax. It hurts everybody the same, and that shouldn't be the case.
well, that's quite true, but it hurts everybody except Warren, Washington, Sarasota County. And I don't know that we're doing better than all the other counties in charge of 8, so yeah. And from my position right now, it doesn't look it, but I heard that all of them are struggling right now, so I don't feel like.
From my perspective, I think I disagree with. Not that the regression, but it is the next, you can control.
No, but a guy making 40,000 is gonna get hit harder than a guy making 200,000.
No.
Shit.
No, because the guy with 40,000 won't spend what the guy 200,000.
That's not the case. You look at the data from other places, and I'll get it for you. It's a regressive tax that hurts the lower income people much more.
Yeah. Well, that's necessity.
Exactly. Basic necessities are gonna be taxed now at 8%.
If you want to buy an $80,000 electric car.
Then you're nuts.
Or a. Or a
$8,000 truck.
$19,000. You know, sedan you can get around that you're good.
But those are the people that basic necessity needs that are gonna be uniform all the way through that.
Well,
lower
food,
income
there's no
person
tax
is
on
gonna pay
any of
tax
it. So food's your basic thing, and there's no tax on that. So half of that stuff.
Yes.
I'll get you the information in the papers and the data. You're wrong.
No, I want to see the information and data, because this is gonna be a huge discussion over the next 15 months, more than
The
likely.
shelter tax, rental, rent, that tax. The sales tax, rent collection.
I think
Anything?
the thing's off, so I better be adjourned.
It's the income.
All safety is adjourned. Finance adjourned. Thank you.
Nate, you learning anything?